Hey, everybody. How's it going?
How's it going, Jim?
It's going good with me. I don't know if you noticed, there's been some news, breaking news.
Hit the button, Frank.
Breaking news. Joe Biden pardons his son Hunter, going all the way back to 2014. It's very, very odd.
So I do have a couple questions, Jim, if you don't mind me starting out with. I prepared some questions for you, Jim.
That's great.
All right. My first question is, do you think the timing of this announcement on a Sunday is something? Don't usually people dump shit late Sunday?
Possible. I mean, it's possible that they spent a great amount of time together over the holiday, for Thanksgiving, and that maybe Hunter told his dad, "Hey, I'm going to get sentenced in a week or two, and maybe you can do something to do something about it." So
this is obviously hypocritical.
Definitely
President Biden.
Definitely hypocritical by President Biden, but it also might be, let's say, exactly what he needs to do. And the question is going to be really, is he really mad? Is he mad at them for pushing him out? The powers that be, people that run things, the bankers.
The deep state.
The deep state. Well, I mean, because here, obviously, the dates on the pardons, okay? He pardoned him going all the way back to January 1st of 2014. Well, there was this little thing in 2014 that happened called the Maidan coup, where they overthrew the government in Ukraine, and then Biden was put in charge of Ukraine, and then Hunter got a job at Burisma, and there was all types of money flowing to these different people, this Seneca, a group called like Rosemont Seneca, that John Kerry is involved in. And so it's quite possible that this is the first domino to fall to protect all the people involved. Now, the question is, obviously, Joe Biden's brother, I think his name is Robert, if I'm not mistaken. His brother Robert Jim Biden is involved in all this stuff. So he's going to get a pardon, probably dating back to 2014. Now, the question is, does Joe pardon himself? Now, he could, but he doesn't have to worry about a pardon for while he was president. But while he was vice president, he doesn't have any immunity for being vice president. So
I didn't know you could do that. You can pardon.
There's no rules on pardons. You can pardon somebody for shit that ain't happened yet.
Just in perpetuity.
You could say, like the president could say, I'm going to send these group of people to do something, which maybe, I don't think it's a crime because I'm telling them to do it. But maybe someone later might think it's a crime, so I'm going to pardon them for these acts that they're going to do. This actually was a great book by Tom Clancy, Clear and Present Danger with the pardons, but where the guy pulled it out and go, I got one of these. It's my get out of jail free card. You got one? But besides that, there was another book. It was after Executive Orders, I think. Maybe Teeth of the Tiger, where Jack Ryan became president of the United States. And as he was getting out of the presidency, he set up this private spy agency with the help of like his Secretary of the Treasury and Attorney General, and got a bunch of pardons written out for people that weren't even named. The people's names weren't even on them. And signed them. And so that basically it's like
a blank check.
Like a blank check. And there's nothing saying that's not legal. Because the rules are the rules. The pardon, it's a plenary power. It's absolute.
All right. Well, so do you think that power should be taken away from the president? Do you think pardons should be removed?
Personally, I think, honestly, and I think this has been, I believe that when the framers wrote the Constitution, they intended the presidential pardon to apply to all crimes, state and federal. Like, the president can't pardon, like, technically, I think the president should be able to pardon somebody for a state crime. Like, man, that's bullshit. He's pardoned. Get out of here. He's the highest executive in the land. He's the leader of the country. So why would a state have authority? Because states don't have authority over the president.
That makes sense. Doesn't that do an end around checks and balances, though? I mean, it's
Schmacks and checks.
oh, I know. All right. So Hunter's accused of drugs, right? Guns.
This has nothing to do with that.
Okay, so you're saying it goes back to 2014
Yes.
to cover up the.
Oh yeah, it goes back to 2014 to cover up all the stuff, like when Biden was getting money from Ukraine and then from China, because all the China stuff happened in 2016 and 2017. The money coming from China to Rosemont Seneca. That's what I think. That's my opinion. You know, and it'll play out. We have to wait and see, like, what pardons come. Like, does he pardon his brother? Does he pardon himself? Who else directly around him? Like, he might issue hundreds of pardons, but the odds of that are, you know, he's probably a little pissed off, and so he might be like, any of you people who fucking pushed me out and were behind this, deal with it on your own. You know, who knows?
So what is this? I see on Twitter people are saying, well, now he can't plead the fifth.
No, he can't, because he has. You can only plead a fifth if you have criminal liability. It's to prevent you from incriminating yourself. So that's why a judge, technically, you can go into court and you could plead the fifth, and then the judge, they could say, no, we're going to give you immunity. And then you have to talk. It happened in that case, the YSL case, where they gave one of the guys immunity. The guy pled the fifth. They gave him immunity and forced him to talk.
So if they ask him now, since he has no charges hanging over him, correct?
Well, he could. I mean, here's the thing: is yes, technically he can't plead the fifth, but what he can do is say, "I don't remember. I don't recall."
The old Reagan defense.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't recall. I have no recollection of that senator. You know, any number of things. He can't lie. If you lie, that's a new crime. That's perjury.
All right. So if somebody directly asks him, who's the quote big guy in that email, right? Wasn't that a thing that gets 10%? He would now have to answer that one way or the other.
Oh, yeah. There's all types of things now that they're going to call him in to talk about. And that's why there's also rumors that Hunter was writing a book.
Oh, dear.
And that might be what this is all about. Because maybe Hunter said, yeah, I'm writing this book and I'm spilling all the beans. So maybe you might want to pardon me. So, but there is a great guy who talked about this that maybe we could watch and hear his opinion. He's very astute. He wears a little hat and he knows things. So let's see what this guy has to say about,
what's up, Ben?
About things.
Folks, it's time for another episode of Ben Reacts. Thanks to President Joe Biden, who tonight pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, in the most expected scandal of recent memory. Remember, folks, don't miss out on breaking news and exclusive content like these React videos. Join Daily Wire Plus today during our best deal of the year. Right now, you get 50% off new memberships. No code necessary. It is indeed the final hours of our Black Friday deal. Head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe right now. Alrighty, so the big news of the evening, of course, is that President Joe Biden, who had vowed that he would not, in fact, pardon his son, Hunter Biden, on gun and tax-related charges, he was lying. Who knew? Except for everyone, because, of course, President Joe Biden has always been a super corrupt and venal politician. In fact, from the very beginning of his career, he was attempting to make money for members of his family, whether we were talking about his brothers, whether we were talking about his kids, whether we were talking about his sister, whether we were talking about his entire family. His entire family has been the beneficiary of his political largesse. They've all used his name in order to pull down sacks of cash. And Hunter Biden, of course, was most famous for doing that, whether he was pulling down sacks of cash by taking money from Ukrainian energy company Burisma, having no expertise in Ukraine or in energy, whether he was attempting to take down sacks of cash from the Chinese with 10% held in trust for the big guy. That is according, again, to contemporaneous emails that were found on the Hunter Biden laptop, which were then covered up by the media and, of course, by the intelligence community, which claimed that it was probably Russian disinformation. Well, you'll recall that last year, there's a huge scandal because the special counsel, a person named David Weiss, first attempted to bury the Hunter Biden charges, particularly when it came to the question of Foreign Agent Registration Act violations, tax felonies, whether Joe Biden was in fact involved in all of this.
Oh, and if anybody in the chat you know what? Fuck it. If anyone in the chat wants to pop on, I could put the link in the chat because, well, you know, we could always kick them out. So there, it's in the chat. If anybody wants to jump in the chat, it's a wild night stream. Oh, anyway, This is a wild stream, so we'll see what happens.
Attempted a plea deal with Hunter Biden that would have allowed him to get off scot-free, essentially, with some probation and some community service. And then he attempted to bury the tax charges in the gun charges. In the end, the judge blew that up because the judge looked at the deal and realized that the deal was, in fact, unbelievably corrupt. And there was no way to even pretend that it wasn't. So in the end, David Weiss and company at the DOJ, they had to go back to the drawing board. And eventually, the judge in that particular case accepted a guilty plea in a 9-count indictment, 3 felony tax offenses, 6 misdemeanor tax offenses, as well as a gun charge because he had lied on his gun intake form. He had suggested that he was not, in fact, a drug addict when he was, in fact, a drug addict. Now, again, those convictions did not get to the root of the matter with regard to Hunter Biden, which was he, in fact, a bag man for daddy? I mean, we have texts from Hunter Biden to his own children suggesting that he paid the family bills. So the chances that he was not, in fact, a bag man for the Biden family are pretty much zero. Everyone all over the world knew that daddy was the one with the weight, and they figured that by paying Hunter Biden, they would basically buy off daddy. This was always the bargain. Hunter Biden basically admitted as much. He went on national television, and he was asked whether he would have ever obtained any of these highly paid foreign jobs, if not for his last name. And he said no. And he said no. Well, Hunter Biden, again, gets convicted. He goes to jail. That happens back in September. And part of the reason why this happened back in September is because, as you'll recall, there were still ongoing questions as to whether Donald Trump was going to go to jail. So one of the ways that the DOJ...
See, I don't think there was ever any chance Donald Trump was going to go to jail. I think everything they did was to try and hurt him electorally to stop him from winning. And, you know, they came close. Yeah,
haven't all the cases been dismissed at this point?
Well, now they have, yeah. But, I mean, the cases were all horseshit, you know. I mean, the bottom line is Hunter did break the law, okay? Mm-hmm. Hunter did break the law. He did lie on the form. Now, the form is bullshit. That shouldn't be a crime. It's, you know, that's a violation of your Fifth Amendment rights to make you actually confess on a form. The government, no, government can't do that. So they're not. It's bullshit. That should go away. And all gun laws are racist and unconstitutional anyway, so they should all go away. And as far as the taxation is theft. So tax laws, you can go fuck yourself with that too. So I don't really care about that either. Go for it.
That's what when I was reading his charges, I'm like, all right, he had to lie to get a gun. Fine. He didn't pay his taxes. Okay, I'm with that. He did some crack or whatever. Okay, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm not, I'm not worried. I don't give a fuck about the drugs. I don't give a fuck about any stuff. Now, the corruption and the graft and taking money, when it's taking money from the American people, that's going places and stealing it and they're getting paid. Yeah, I have a problem with that because you're taking money from all of them.
Does what he did or what he's accused of doing tie into the current Ukraine situation? Or
yeah, because it started in 2014. There was this coup in 2014.
The color revolution, right?
Maidan coup or whatever, which was backed by the State Department through Joe Biden and John Kerry and other people, Victoria Nuland, to overthrow the democratically elected president of Ukraine and replace him with a stooge. And they picked who they wanted it. The State Department picked who they wanted it to be because they were all going to run it and they're going to fuck Russia. They're going to do this stuff. And then the Biden stepped in and we're going to get paid. We're going to collect money. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, anybody with eyes can see it. And
sounds like the mob.
Yeah, basically. Oh yeah, I mean that's his whole thing. Like Biden's family has been grafting money off of government shit for his entire time. His fortunes in government tie directly to his family's fortunes, financially. His brother was huge with contracts in Iraq to rebuild shit and build houses and stuff in Iraq when the rebuilding of Iraq happened. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's that's how these people all go into government broke and come out multimillionaires.
Yeah.
I mean, how is Joe Biden, a senator from fucking Delaware, class right. Joe, worth $200 million? Where did that money come from? Someone fucking explain it to me because I'd like to know. Sign me up. Not really,
right.
But you know what I'm saying. It's fucked. So, and I don't know where, but Ben, I don't know if he's probably not because Ben supports the Ukraine war, because he has to, because otherwise then he would have to not support the Israeli conflict.
Right.
He's going to back that no matter what. And me personally, I could give a fuck about either one.
Mhm.
No,
I think most Americans feel that way, to be honest. It's like, who cares? Whatever.
I definitely don't care about Ukraine, a corrupt fucking shithole that really is just a part of Russia. I mean, if you want to get technical about it, the original capital of Russia was Kiev, not Kyiv, Kiev.
Plus,
the Rus.
I think a lot of the population in eastern Ukraine are Russian. I mean, don't some of the people that live there want to be part of Russia?
Yeah. I mean, Ukraine
reminds me of something else. Back in the 30s.
I didn't even never thought Ukrainian was a person. That's just a Russian that lives in the Ukraine. It was called the Ukraine. It was just a part of Russia, which I believe it means like the farmland or something. You know, I don't know, but I don't speak Russian, so I don't know. Das Vidanya.
How did they wind up with that president they have now, Zelensky? Not to go in a different direction, but he seems like a
guy they can control. Weird. He clearly was involved in a bunch of shit. He was an actor and this and that, a comedian, and does stuff, and he's involved. And how does that guy have property in Miami and multi-million-dollar condos all over the world? And yeah. So,
all right, let's see what Ben, if you want to.
Yeah, we're going to finish watching Ben because he's just Ben reacting, and we want to see Ben's reaction because we know Ben's going to have the best take on this whatsoever.
My son-in-law probably was either working the camera or has to edit this and upload it. He works for him.
Oh, does he wear a small hat?
No.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
I know. I was actually amazed that he got hired. But yeah, I got you.
Responded to allegations of impropriety and corruption in going after Donald Trump was to convict Hunter Biden, the president's son, on this variety of charges without ever touching Joe Biden. So the idea was the DOJ was definitely not corrupt because after all, the DOJ went out of its way to go after the president's son, even if it was leaving the president of the United States alone. Well, Joe Biden, you'll remember back in July, suggested that if his son was in fact convicted, he would not pardon him. And then after his son was convicted, he still said that he would not pardon him. You remember this? Well, it turns out that he was lying all along. So tonight, we find out that he was not only pardoned on the charges for which he ended up being criminally convicted or pleading guilty, he was actually pardoned with regard to anything he did between period January 1, 2014 and December 1st, 2024, including but not limited to all offenses charged or prosecuted.
Yeah, I mean, technically right now, Hunter, depending on where he is in the country, he has anywhere from 40 minutes, 3 hours and 40 minutes. Actually, if he was in Hawaii, he would have even longer. Commit whatever fucking federal crimes he wants. He's good. Like he could right now walk into a bank and rob a bank because that's a federal crime. And he'd be good. He can't do nothing. Because he's pardoned through today.
But that's what I was saying earlier. It's like that seems like a lot of power to give a president.
It is.
Just pardon anybody.
You know what?
On a whim.
It's you know why? Because the president is the king for 4 years. They knew what a king was. They knew what that power was. That's why the explanation about what the executive's power is limited. It's tiny in the, you know what I mean? They don't explain anything. They go, he's the power executive because they knew what that power was. It's everything that they carved away from the king, that they gave to the legislature, that they gave to the judiciary.
So I already know you said pardons don't have to get checked or balanced, so to speak.
No,
do things like executive orders? How about executive orders? They have to be looked at? Well, the
executive order, has to pass constitutional muster, which means you couldn't have an executive order that says like, oh, women are property or something like that. You couldn't do that,
That sucks.
But executive order is basically supposed to direct the federal government how to implement the statutes and laws already in a book. But, like an executive order could say like, yeah, hey, you know what? I don't like Trump technically come and go, you know what? I think income tax is unconstitutional, so don't enforce it. And then it would be this whole, no, just say he could, and then see what happens, or, yeah, I think all these gun laws are unconstitutional. Don't enforce them, ATF. Yeah, everybody should have machine guns, so there's NFA, just ignore it. And, the problem with executive orders is they only last while that president is in office they don't if they could be repealed immediately by the incoming president. But a lot of times they leave executive orders in place. Like they'll try to say like, oh, the president is supposed to do this because there's an executive order that was signed by this other president saying the president would do this. It's like, yeah, well, the president doesn't have to follow somebody else's executive orders unless he wants to.
But what's sad to me is it sounds like whenever there seems to be a change in power politically, that the incoming person will reverse somebody else's executive order, not based on the Constitution, but based on I didn't like him. Like,
well, that doesn't always happen, and that's not normal. What happened with the Trump, when Trump left office and Biden came in, it was basically like Biden was like, I'm getting rid of every one of Trump's executive orders because Trump was evil, bad orange man. But then a lot of them he put back into place, the same ones. And then took credit for it, like the whole insulin thing. You know, Trump did this thing about insulin, and then Biden revoked it, and then 2 weeks later put it in and said, I lowered insulin. It's like, motherfucker, you just did what he did too, and you took it away and put it back. It's like,
yeah, you put a cap on insulin prices or something like that.
Yeah, $35 or whatever. Trump did the same thing. Yeah, but anyway, so what's up, Ben? Wow, do you ever notice that Ben looks an awful lot like Nick Fuentes?
Yeah, he does, actually. I never thought about it, but you're right.
Shockingly similar. Like they could be brothers. They could be the same person. I wonder if he knows destiny.
Any that have resulted in convictions by Special Counsel David C. Weiss. Okay, that is what Joe Biden issued tonight. So it is not just the stuff that he was actually guilty of. It is anything else, right? Any offenses that he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during that entire period. So that entire period, of course, would include pretty much everything related to the Burisma period, which was happening in 2015 and early 2016. Pretty incredible stuff right there. I mean, that is Joe Biden just taking himself off the hook by proxy. That's what that is. We'll get to Joe Biden's statement on the matter in one moment. First, when a big brand says free, what they really mean is see the fine print. There is no shortage of ads from the big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free, of course, but you need to look deeper. You'll quickly realize
this motherfucker's doing an ad read.
Trade in your phone valued at $1,000, enroll in.
Sneak it in, don't they?
He snuck in a fucking ad read in a 9-minute video.
He does that on all his videos.
I tell you, makes you wonder, don't you? Like some people are only interested in money.
He's got a good racket going.
Is he wearing his little hat? I don't see it.
Yeah, I saw it. He turned his head for a minute. He's always got that thing on. Probably sleeps with it.
In the $100 a month unlimited plan and then pay the $35 activation fee. It's a lot of money for a free phone. You don't need to do any of that. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, has a better option.
Wait, it's a lot of money for a free phone? That doesn't make any sense.
He's a huckster.
If it's a free phone, it shouldn't cost you any money. That's what free means.
That's a good point. It's
free, but we're going to charge you a bunch of fees.
Well, he speaks at 1.5 speed, so sometimes he gets shit past people.
Option, get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles you need. Plus, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, mobile hotspot, all for $50 a month. How about that? Half the price of the big guys. You get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network right now. Go to puretalk.com/Shapiro today. Switching is super simple. Plus, when you go to puretalk.com/Shapiro, you do get an additional 50% off your very first month of coverage. Pure Talk is America's wireless company. Alrighty, so the actual statement that Joe Biden released is really self-serving. As you would imagine.
Really?
I mean, of course, it has to be self-serving, given the fact that, of course, this is the president pardoning his own son. And understand the corruption here. The entire attempt to convict Hunter Biden was done as a balancing act in order to demonstrate that they were not, in fact, a tool of the Democratic administration. So their case was, we can prosecute Donald Trump willy-nilly, but we're not biased because we are also prosecuting Hunter. But Republicans were saying, well, yeah, I mean, that's all well and good, except that Joe is going to pardon Hunter the minute that he has the opportunity to do so. So it's all a fake. And Joe's like, no, I would never do that. I'm never going to. Well, it turns out we were all right. It was a fake. So Joe Biden puts out a statement and it says this, quote, today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who are late paying their taxes because of serious addictions but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear Hunter was treated differently. Yes, it turns out Joe Biden isn't doing this because Hunter is his son. It's because Hunter was unfairly victimized by the Department of Justice, unlike Donald Trump, who, of course, had the Department of Justice activated against him. And Joe Biden said that he should, in fact, have the Department of Justice activated against him while simultaneously the DOJ was openly stating that Joe Biden had committed crimes with regard to classified materials, but he was senile, so they wouldn't prosecute him. Remember, the selectivity tends to run in one particular direction. While the statement goes on, the charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the DOJ unraveled in the courtroom, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. That, of course, is not what the judge said. The judge, as you'll recall, in this case, looked at that plea deal, which effectively took the gun charges and then wrapped in all possible tax charges as sort of an addendum to the plea deal on the gun charges. And the judge looked at that and said, wait, I'm not even trying the tax charges. Why in the world would I sign off on a plea agreement that involves cases over which I am not presiding? That's crazy. So once again, Joe Biden is lying. He says no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. There's been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. He's a victim.
Wait. So whose coke was it they found in the White House last year? If he's been 5.5 years sober, that was someone else's.
Kamala's probably.
Yeah, it was Kamala's. Had to have been somebody's coke. Had to have been somebody's coke. Had to have been. Oh,
He is Hunter. He spent his entire adult life being a derelict, a drug addict who sires children by random women and then ignores them for years on end, who sleeps with his brother's widow, who runs around the world picking up sacks of cash.
I'm not going to lie. I'd love to hang out with Hunter Biden.
He'd be a good hang. I agree. But all the things he's saying, like slept with his brother's widow, I'm like, okay.
I don't give a fuck.
I
Whatever.
mean, right.
Now,
right.
was he banging his brother's widow while he was still alive? That would be like, dude, that's kind of low down. But
It's a little wrong.
There is that line, you know. I mean, remember what Boyd Crowder said in the Bible? It says, you know, you're supposed to care for your brother's widow, and you know he intends to do that. So he's kind of like Boyd Crowder. Oh, Hunter's like Boyd Crowder. Holy fuck!
Degenerate, right? Yeah.
For his daddy. But don't worry, he's the victim here. In trying to break Hunter, says Joe, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. For my entire career, I've followed a simple principle. Just tell the American people the truth. They'll be fair-minded. Here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I've wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. And once I made this decision this weekend, there was no sense in delaying it further. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. No, we know perfectly well why you came to this decision, Mr. President. We totally get it. It's because you are super corrupt. That's the reason that you came to this particular decision. Listen, I get it. You're a dad, but also you happen to be a super corrupt dad. None of these excuses hold water. And you don't get to claim that you agree with the justice system while you simultaneously undermine it through one of the most corrupt pardons in American history right here, which is exactly what is happening. All right, folks, we're going to have a lot on this tomorrow morning, so you have to make sure that you tune into the show. I have a lot
Definitely,
to talk
Ben.
about here.
I wouldn't miss it from the world, Ben. You know, for the world, Ben. We'll be there, Ben, with bells on, you know, to see that, because it sounds like he's really on to something.
What annoyed me the most when I was reading the pardon is the audacity of it all. Like, they unfairly came after him because of politics. And I'm like, isn't that what just happened to Trump?
It's weird. It's like they don't get it. You know, they don't understand it. They're confused, and
All right, so my other questions are, one is, would you pardon your son if you were the president?
Yeah.
That's, I think so. I actually talked to my son about this today when we were watching football. I'm like, I don't know, unless you like killed somebody, yeah, I'd probably have your back.
Honestly,
you need him pardon.
But like, did they need killing? Okay, I guess they needed killing.
Yeah.
So,
other question is, now some people are saying they should do, I don't know if quid pro quo is the right term. They're like, oh, well, he pardoned his son, so now we can pardon the J6 people.
Yeah, that was I think Biden. Okay, there's other people like Trump probably told Biden. This is my headcanon, so I'm just making this up as I go along. But Trump probably told Biden, "Listen, don't worry, Hunter's not going to go to jail. I'll pardon him. Don't worry about it." And Biden was like, "Oh, okay, no problem." And then Biden thought, "Wait a minute. I let him pardon Hunter, that's going to make him look good and magnanimous. And then when he pardons all these other people, no one can complain, because then Trump could have pardoned a bunch of other people. And so then Biden goes, and then Trump's not going to pardon my brother and all these other people that were doing this stuff in Ukraine and getting money and ripping people off and taking bribes from China and fair and all. He's not going to do all that. And then I got to pardon them. So I'm going to have to pardon Hunter, because if I start pardoning these other people without pardoning Hunter, and especially because Hunter could have went to jail this month.
Do you think he would have? If all things
probably not.
equal?
But I mean, you never know. I mean, it would be up to the judge. If the judge said, nope, we're taking you into custody, say the judge had a hair up his ass.
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, it's not like someone in federal prison is going to be completely safe. Cameras can get shut off. They could accidentally trip and fall into their sheet and end up,
Suicide,
snapping their neck. Yeah, suicide.
Yeah.
Like break their neck, like they fell 20 feet, even though it was a 1 foot drop. Stuff like that. But we're going to.
When I was reading people on Twitter, and they were saying, "Well, now Trump needs to pardon J6." I don't like that, because Hunter, outside of the drugs and the taxes and the whores, which I'm okay with, the Ukraine stuff, he should go to jail for that. Whereas the J6 in Charlottesville shouldn't be in jail at all. So
that's the problem, is those other things that he did, all the stuff besides the drugs and the guns and the hookers, that involves a bunch of other people. Because if you read the pardon, the actual language of the pardon, it says, for acts he committed or may have committed or may have participated in. Participated in means a fucking conspiracy involving other people.
But he hasn't pardoned anybody else at the moment.
Not yet, that we know of. But I would think the first one you're going to do is your son.
Yeah.
So who knows? It's this thing. It's like, if he pardons a whole bunch of people, then he's worried about stuff coming out that's going to make people look bad, and he still wants to protect the Democratic Party, and he still wants to protect things. If he only pardons like his brother and himself, maybe, or close, personal, like really tight people to him, well, then he's like, fuck you. You guys pushed me out. Suffer.
All right. So do you think Trump and his administration should just let this go and say, well, we won?
Exactly. No, I don't think they should be vindictive in any way, shape, or form. But people that committed crimes against the American people that, basically treason, well, do you think Biden will pardon the Vindman brothers for their
I'm not familiar
participation?
with that.
Oh, that's the guys that were the whistleblowers that, said about Trump's phone call with Ukraine that caused him to get impeached and all that stuff, when it turns out it was all bullshit. They basically...
That was the perfect phone call, right?
Yeah, and it was the perfect phone call. All Trump said, hey, what's going on? Can you look into this? Is there anything to this stuff? Which, guess what? Obviously there was, because Biden just had to pardon his son for that time period that Trump was asking him to look into.
See, I think that's an interesting discussion that's going on now. Like, I watch Megyn Kelly. I like her. I think she's entertaining. And she's like, no, show no quarter to these people. And then there's other people saying, all right, we won. We got majority. Let's just fucking...
No, they have to know that this is not going to fly. Like, we came so close to losing the country over this, because if they would have succeeded and done this stuff, then it's it. It's over. It's just Banana Republic time. But if they were willing to say, okay, we're fucked up, we're wrong, basically if they, dismiss all the charges against Trump, nothing, we're sorry, dismiss the cases, and then Biden was to pardon all the J6 people, then I would say, okay, all right, we'll let this,
we're good.
We're good.
Square.
Let's go. But if he doesn't pardon any of the people on our side, basically, then no, fuck them.
Do you rope in the Charlottesville people too? Aren't there people?
There's just one Charlottesville guy that's a state case, I think. And that guy, I don't think, the guy seemed like not a good person per se. But from what I saw in the stuff happened, somebody pointed a gun at him and caused him to floor it to get away from him, and that's how the whole accident happened. So I don't know.
That's what I heard too. But
you got people admitting, you got people admitting to saying, yeah, we were pointing guns at him and this and that, and he took off. And it's like, well, yeah, you caused him to take off. So Like I don't, that should have been, he basically got thrown under the bus, I think, but definitely like Enrique, all those Proud Boys, they should get let out of jail. The Oath Keepers, they should get let out of jail.
Yeah.
The problem is with a blanket pardon, does that excuse the behavior of the feds? Because if you just say, I'm going to pardon everybody who had, for any actions they took on January 6th, well, that would include feds, and that would include the fucking people who set it up and complicit, informants and Ray Epps. No, I don't want Ray Epps to get a pardon.
I would think that
unless Ray Epps was completely innocent and not involved in any way, shape, or form with the government, and just for whatever reason, the feds decided to like, hey, we're going to take this guy off the FBI most wanted list just because, we like the way his shoes look. And, we don't know anything about him, but he's just a stand-up dude. And, but why was he treated so much differently than everyone else? Well, there's also...
Oh, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Also, all the people that have been arrested for praying outside of abortion clinics under Biden and locked up. Those people need to get let out of jail.
Speaking of the FBI, Jim, do you like the new appointee
Cash Patel? Oh, cash only, baby. He's going to be great. He's awesome.
What's his main thing? Like, his
main thing is the bureaucracy is corrupt. The D state needs to be taken out. He wrote a book about it called "The Plot to Get the King," plot to kill the king, or plot to kill Trump or something. He's great, man. And he's been involved. He's been working in government since Obama. So he's been in government. He's been in high, like DOD and NSA, like, intelligence stuff. So he's not a dummy, and he's been around. So and he's he's not experienced. No, he's experienced. He's a lawyer. He's, prosecuted cases and stuff. He prosecuted more cases than Kamala Harris.
I think I saw an interview with him where somebody was talking about the JFK papers, and he's like, well, you're talking to somebody who's read them, which is interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so, there's that. And then, like I said, all the people praying outside of abortion clinics that they've been going and locking up, and I'm not happy with this pick for the DEA, this sheriff who turns out was the guy who DeSantis had to rescue a pastor that he locked up for violating COVID restrictions in 2020. And he was like telling people, stay in your house, don't come outside, go, and told his deputies, if you don't get vaccinated and you get sick, we're not going to, you're going to have to eat the time off. But if you get vaccinated and get sick, we'll cover your time off. It'll be like sick day. It's like, what? You can't do that.
Well, Trump's somewhat responsible for all that COVID stuff, though, isn't he?
No, because Trump never wanted lockdowns. He said, hey, 2 weeks is supposed to spread or whatever, but he never wanted lockdowns. He fought against it. And he fought with governors all over the place telling him, open back up. What are you doing?
That's true. I was thinking more about the efficacy of the vaccines, where he was trying to.
He was just doing that, like he needs to wake up to that. Hopefully, Bobby Kennedy will talk him, and be like, dude, stop. He was proud of it. Like his thing about getting it done, the warp speed and stuff that he's so proud of. Okay, yeah, get rid of government regulations, but it has to be tested properly. And if it's not tested properly, then you have to tell people this is experimental. We ain't going to force, like, that's the whole thing. Like Trump didn't want any vaccine mandates, didn't want anyone to be forced to do it. So that's the difference. Like, say this is experimental. It might work. It might not work. Well, let's give it a shot. There's no problem with that. But to force people to take it, that's the bad thing.
Yeah, you don't push through a vaccine and say everything's fine in 6 months. That's not the way that works.
Well, apparently, all the vaccines that they've approved since the 80s have never been tested for safety. Go figure.
The mother of my kids was all anti-vaccine. She wanted nothing to do with any of them. And I remember arguing with her. I'm like, come on, everybody gets a shot. I used to get a shot. But she read all these books. She's like, nope, no shots, none of this bullshit.
Like why do we in the U.S. have that MMR vaccine, that multiple mumps, measles, rubella? It's all mixed together. Like everywhere else, it's a separate shot, and at different times. Like it should be spread out more. Like you should get one shot, and then a couple months later get another shot, and not all these shots, bang, 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 all these shots, because it's not so much the shots, it's the stuff that's inside the preservatives. I think it's called like a thermosol or something like that. It's like a form of mercury. It's in all the vaccines. Yeah. Yeah.
Mercury?
Mercury. Yeah. Mercury.
Oh, Okay.
It's not good.
No.
Like the one, like in a hepatitis B vaccine or whatever it is, or hepatitis C or whatever, I don't know what it is that they give the brand new babies. It's like they want to give it to the baby as soon as it's born in the hospital. Well, like, yeah, the Marisol or something. Yeah. That has enough mercury in it, like the mercury that would be like the acceptable level for a 250 pound man. And they're giving it to babies. Yeah, they're giving it to babies. So, I'm opposed to that stuff. Like, fix this.
Well, I hope RFK Jr. will address that area of things. Like, there's lots of corruption in the medical field where even like people who come to a doctor's office to sell, hey, look at this new drug we have. Try it out, and we'll, give you kickback.
Well, I want a new drug when it don't make me sick, when it don't make me stay up all night, make me feel 3 feet thick.
All right, Huey, let's hit the solar report.
All right, man.
Good morning, folks. Today we're going to check out the winter storm in the east, some eye candy from the XAI Grok, and hit 3 excellent papers on solar forcing and pre-earthquake signals. But we're starting with the last 24 hours on our star, where things remain very quiet. We have plenty of sunspots and plasma filaments, even a coronal hole visible incoming from the left. But activity was calm the last day, no significant flares or eruptions. The watch for today mostly rides with the incoming sunspot group. You can see that the larger sunspot group on the right is beginning to depart our view, while the incoming equatorial spots are still turning to face the Earth. We have had only minor activity at these active regions, but with flaring possible at both of them. This green 94 angstrom view is showing the flaring activity still very low level as white flashes. We're eyes open for X-ray surges and coronal mass ejections as the spots face Earth heading into next week. Many of you have heard about or are literally dealing with the major snowstorm that hit the eastern U.S. this week. This jet stream setup allows for Arctic air to circulate southward, and its position over the Great Lakes means the lake effect snow is major. This was the perfect setup for what closed down highways this week. Hopefully, the dig out goes well. Yesterday, I asked Grok, Elon Musk's AI bot for X, to make an image of me based on my posts. Think we can admit it did a pretty good job. Man, X is fun these days. Moving on to the science articles, where we find that solar activity and El Nino pretty much completely control the Indian monsoon. What's more interesting is that the sun's control over El Nino is one of the only things the IPCC actually acknowledges about solar forcing. So this paper is basically saying the sun controls the monsoon both directly and indirectly. Up next, we've got an excellent study cataloging major earthquakes and pre-seismic ionospheric anomalies. This multi-year study confirms what everyone in the subfield already knows. The big quakes snitch on themselves before they happen. If only someone was watching. And our top story today, the sun controls climate variation so dramatically that it also controls migration and population numbers of civilization over long periods of time. They found the growth or shrinking of populations across the world has matched the rise and fall of solar activity, with the switches in major solar activity phase matching the migrations of people into different places. This is by controlling those monsoons, El Nino, the jet streams, and the overall temperature and precipitation rates across the world. Folks, our next major event at the ranch is in 2 weeks. It's UFO Day with special guest Adrian D'Amico, but also our pre-solstice party with some catastrophism science sprinkled in. Whether for the major events or your preference for smaller gatherings, just pick a date. Come out and see us. observerranch.com. We greatly appreciate your support. We'll do this all again tomorrow, right here. But right now, it's 5:45 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open. No fear. Be safe,
5:45
everyone.
a.m. I was still streaming with Dave last night at 5:45 a.m.
Yeah, it's interesting, I'm paying more attention to the sun, I'm drinking more wine as I'm getting older, Pop. It's good to drink wine,
Never had a taste for wine.
Nah, me neither. I don't like wine.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to head out. I got to get up early in the morning Any closing thoughts on the?
45 minutes.
Oh.
Jesus.
I'll hang out longer if you got more stuff. I'll
Yeah,
chill.
we've got this thing. We're going to read this right here for immediate release, December 1st, 2024. Statement from President Joe Biden on today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere in the Justice Department's decision making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly persecuted without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchase. People are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Well, technically true, Joe, because most of the people plead fucking guilty. So they aren't brought to trial. He didn't say charged. He didn't say prosecuted. He said brought to trial.
Hmm.
Well, that's very keen word. You got to read between the lines. You know?
I mean, this is frustrating to me because he's not wrong. Like
No.
in a way,
nobody should get charged with this crime then.
But to your point, him putting it back to retroactively to 2014, he doesn't address that specifically. He just addresses
He doesn't
this bullshit that people like. I would agree with this. Like I owe a little bit of
he could have
taxes.
pardoned him strictly for this stuff, but he didn't.
Right.
You know, that's why I want to find the pardon too, the actual language of the pardon, because it's so telling. So telling. Yeah, so and filled out a gun form. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions, but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties, are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. Well, because these are the crimes you guys picked to charge. Your Justice Department picked these crimes because the FARA crimes and the other crimes would have involved other people, including you, Joe. The 10% for the big guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would involve you, Joe. So that's
which is
why
not mentioned here.
there.
He's talking about my son doesn't do drugs anymore. I'm like, okay, lots of people have problems, and they
blaming it on his political opponent. You know, the charges in this case came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the Department of Justice unraveled in the courtroom. Well, yeah, because you tried to give him immunity for shit he wasn't charged with on other cases that weren't even part of this case. You can't do that. They tried to basically give him the pardon with the plea deal. You understand? Like, involved any crimes. It was any crimes he ever committed. That's what he was immune from by pleading guilty to these.
like you said earlier, blank check.
Yeah, it was a straight up blank check. With a number of my political opponents' comments taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process, had the plea deal held. It would have been fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's case can reach any other conclusion. And Hunter was singled out because he is my son. Well, how many people were singled out for these same crimes, Joe? What about the poor illegal immigrant who was living in Ohio for 15 years, who went and filled out the paperwork to get guns and bought over 200 guns? And you guys arrested him because he lied on the form claiming he was a U.S. citizen. And your background checks never discovered that he wasn't a U.S. citizen.
He's almost like he's trying to make the people feel bad for his son, who has profited off of all the corruption and the mob boss type activity from foreign countries that have caused people to die, literally now in the war over there. Yeah. I'm supposed to cry for Hunter?
Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. You know, it says there has been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober. Well, has he been 5.5 years sober?
We're supposed to take that at face value and not look into it.
See, and here's the thing: it's selective persecution. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me. There's no reason to believe it will stop here. As enough is enough. Well, I guess they don't want it to stop. I guess they want this to continue, so I guess it should then. I guess that should be the case. It should just continue.
He goes on, though. There's more of that, right?
Yeah. No, that's it. That was the second page, but I'm looking here. Yeah, I mean, even like here's the Ford's pardon of Nixon.
Oh,
This wasn't like Hunter's pardon is more inclusive than Nixon's.
it's certainly longer.
Oh yeah,
So Ford's like a
it's
couple
it's
paragraphs. He's good.
paragraphs. Yeah.
Get over it.
You know,
Let's move on.
Gerald Ford, President of the United States, pursuant to pardon power conferred by a Constitution, have granted the President full, free, and absolute pardon to Richard Nixon for all offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part of during the period from January 20th to 1969 to August 9th, 1974. So, and Hunter's was January 1st, 2014 to December 1st through December 1st, 2024.
Yeah, Hunter got 10 years. President Nixon got, what's that, 5 and a half years of immunity?
Technically, Hunter got 11 years. You know, because, 10 years, 11 months, and 30 days.
I think some of the reactions on X that people are like kind of shocked by this are silly. Like this, should have expected this.
Where
really?
is the pardon? Where is the pardon? Where is the actual language of the pardon? Because I want to get it. Not the statement, the actual pardon. Here it is.
Yeah, with the dates and all that.
There we go. So, I mean, his isn't very long either. This is the actual pardon. Executive grant of clemency. Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States. To all to whom these presents shall come. Greetings. What? Who the fuck wrote that?
Destiny, I think.
Be it known that this day, I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States, pursuant to my powers under Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution, have granted unto Robert Hunter Biden a full and unconditional pardon for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014, December 1st, 2024. 2014. Like I said, that's a date that goes, wow, that's when the Ukraine shit started. 2014.
I think a lot of people on X are skipping over that bit.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to not let them.
Yeah, that's the important bit. Is the time frame.
Oh, yeah, maybe this is a gift to all whom these presents shall come. So it's a gift. It's a gift. It's a present. So the presents shall come. You come, Dan Blackroyd's got it. He knows. He's like,
It's Christmas. That's right.
It's Christmas. It's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens. Mom cooking turkey and collard greens. Or maybe chicken and collard. I can't remember. Is it chicken and collard greens or turkey and collard greens?
There's mac and cheese in there somewhere.
Mac and cheese. Yeah. And anything that happened, a pardon is anything that happened inside of that time frame. Doesn't matter what. Everything, anything. You can come up with anything. He could have. Okay. He could have, even this. If he murdered hookers in the White House during that time frame, can't be charged.
So hypothetically, there may be things he did that nobody knows about.
Correct.
That he's absolved.
It doesn't matter. It could be anything. It could be like, as long as it happened in like, not a state like U.S. territory. So like the District of Columbia or like Puerto Rico or like, he might have killed hookers in Puerto Rico.
Trash heap, right?
Because that's federal. On Indian reservations, he could have killed a bunch of Indians on the Indian reservations. Anywhere that federal law supersedes, that is the presiding law. So military bases, stuff like that. He could have killed hookers on military. Oh my God, maybe he killed hookers in the Panama Canal. I don't know.
They may be in the canal, the hookers. Chucked them right over the boat.
Could be. But yeah, so. Yeah.
So is there anything more egregious about this pardon than Ford's pardon, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, No, I mean, it's just, they're not. Nixon. Technically, I don't think Nixon needed the pardon because he was the president, so he has immunity. Because if he was doing it while he was president, he's immune. So,
but he was spying on his political opponents, like G. Gordon Liddy and the Cubans and all that stuff, right?
So were the Democrats.
No, that's fair. All right, probably right.
Do you remember when in the 68 election, there was a whole thing where Lyndon Johnson calls Nixon and tells him, "Hey, have you been talking to those Vietnamese?" And he goes, "No, I haven't." And they, "You fucker lying to me," because he knew because they were spying on Nixon.
OBJ was fucking bananas from what I read.
Oh yeah,
he was a hard ass.
Yeah, he definitely killed fucking JFK. Was part of the conspiracy, I think.
Really?
OBJ. He was in a. Oh yeah, I mean, well, it happened in Texas. He ran Texas. The guy, the mayor of Dallas at the time was Corbell, something like that, whose brother was the number 2 at the CIA, was fired by JFK with Dulles, and then a guy that a little nobody that you've never heard of named George Herbert Walker Bush ended up running the CIA, and so yeah.
Was the mayor of Dallas the one that got shot in the car too, or was that
no
the governor of Texas?
It was the governor.
Governor,
of Texas.
Okay.
Governor Conley, who didn't really get along with LBJ and wasn't supposed to be driving in the car with Kennedy. It was supposed to be LBJ, and LBJ said at the last minute, "No, switch with me. I want to ride in this car. You ride in that car."
If they release the documents from that, do you think at this point in time anybody will believe them? If they don't already think there's shenanigans going on?
I don't know. I mean, unless the documents say like this is what happened and it was these people and this is who did it and this is who was involved, I'm not going to believe it. Like there's all kinds of shit. Like, why did the Secret Service stand down? He was not supposed to be driving an open top car like that in that area. There were supposed to be guys on the back of the car. There was supposed to be motorcycles next to the cars, to block shots and stuff. All types of things that they did not do that were normal.
Was it normal back then though? Because that shit didn't used to happen. It did on occasion.
There was procedures that they were supposed to follow that they did not follow on that trip. Why did the guy that was driving the car sit there and stare at Kennedy after he got shot and watch him and slow down and wait for the second shot to hit him and then go, "Oh, okay, now I can step on the gas"?
I'm not sure it would be beneficial to the public in general to release. I mean, they should release documents because they're government documents and we pay for the government. But I don't know that it would make a difference anymore. Everybody's already got their assumptions as to what happened.
So yeah, so there's this excellent tweet here that we can bring up here that some guy,
Yeah, I saw this genius
that some guy posted. So here's General Mike Flynn, who's a patriot. He's a patriot. He should be respected. Says, yes, there's a lot going on, but make no mistake about it. Those on the left will do everything they can to get away with as much as they can. Count on that. 20th January 2025 cannot get here soon enough. Real Donald Trump, please protect yourself from those who are willing to do anything to stay in power.
Weren't they going after Flynn's son?
Yeah, they did. They went after Flynn's son and told him, "You do this or we're going to lock your son up," or some other shit. Then this smart guy, Jim, here says, "Why does Hunter's pardon go back to the beginning of the Ukraine situation? Seems odd. Almost like they were covering up their involvement. How many more pardons will be issued for the giant money laundering scheme?" He says, if Biden issues a bunch more, then he's terrified of the fallout from it being made public. If he only protects his family and closest friends, then he's pissed about being pushed out and wants them to pay for their betrayal of him. That explains everything.
This kid Jim should have a podcast or like a YouTube show.
He should. I'm trying to get him on as a guest.
One's enough.
So that's all. There's not much else to really talk about tonight. you know, Julio's got to get up early. He's got a new job opportunity tomorrow. He's going to be the head coach of the San Diego Dolphins.
San Diego. Yep.
Stay classy, San Diego. I'll read anything they put on the teleprompter.
It's like Anchorman. It's up. That's.
I don't know. I try to be funny. It doesn't always work. But, you know, if you can't laugh with me, you can sure laugh at me.
Yep. No, you can't hit a home run if you don't swing, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't have any, you know, Julio's got to go, Kevin, and no one else wants to come on, and I can't just talk to myself. I guess
I'll hang out if you got more, you know, stuff to talk about. I can hang out for a little bit longer.
Oh, there is one thing that I was gonna pull up that I will.
Give me a minute, Jim. I'll be back in like 1 minute.
All right, no problem.
There's a hooker at the door. I got to get rid of.
All right. So, chat. Does anybody in chat know this game called Pokemon Go? Has anyone heard of this game? Do you know this game? Do you know what this game is? Because what if I told you that Pokemon Go was actually a CIA op to geospatially map the entire world, including your house, for future use in drones to come and kill you? What if I told you that? Would that be a story you'd be interested in? Would that be interesting? As soon as Julio gets back, we will get into this. It's very, very interesting. I guess while we're waiting, we could do some other stuff here.
Oh, here we go. I saw this earlier.
Oh, you did?
Well, you put it. Yeah, you put it in the.
A revolutionary smartphone game or a potentially lethal fad. Pokemon Go hasn't even been out a week and already it's a viral phenomenon.
Pokemon fever is back and it's everywhere.
While you were busy catching Pikachu in your neighborhood, someone else is quietly catching you and your data for a much bigger game.
Pokemon Go is using your phone's camera to build a CIA-backed 3D map artificial intelligence engine. If that's not a load of buzzwords from the most ridiculous plot of the most ridiculous spy thriller movie ever, I don't know what is.
This is real life, and it's been happening under our noses since Pokemon Go launched in 2016. By the end of this video, you'll know how a seemingly innocent app turned into a global data collection tool, how it's linked to the CIA, and why the cute pixelated world of Pokemon might just be the future of surveillance.
Welcome to the world of Pokemon Go. Patterson Park was packed today with people on a smartphone scavenger hunt.
Remember the summer of 2016? It felt like the whole world was united. Kids, adults, even your grandparents wandering around public parks and landmarks glued to their screen.
Thanks, Obama.
He's not wrong. So around this time, there was a bar I used to go to, and all the girl, like 40-year-old women, like the moms who came for happy hour or whatever, this is all they would talk about. Hey, did you go to the mall? I found fucking whatever, Jigglypuff by the Babbages or whatever. It was weird.
It was weird, but that's what it was doing. It was just collecting all the information, you know, using your camera and everything and mapping everything using GPS and pictures and getting a map, geospatial map of every area, knowing who's around, who's there, so that they could get you.
Pokemon's Nintendo, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I never was into Pokemon.
Greens.
My kids were.
But while we were busy throwing Pokeballs, Niantic, the company behind Pokemon Go, was collecting something far more valuable than Charmanders: data. And not just any data, personal location-based data uploaded in real time by millions of players. The crazy part? It wasn't just for game development or ad targeting. It's now confirmed that this data was feeding into a CIA-backed initiative to create an advanced 3D map of the world. Yep, you heard that right. The CIA invested in Pokemon Go.
But
I'm not
one
trying
thing
to take
that
an
isn't
upskirt
actually
picture.
laughably fun.
What's that?
I'm not trying to take an upskirt picture, ma'am. I'm just trying to find a fucking
Yeah, oh,
whatever. Yes, Pokemon.
Funny here is Hamdi Bakhit, a member of Egypt's Committee of Defense and National Security, actually told the parliament there that Pokemon Go is the latest tool used by spy agencies in the intelligence war.
Let's rewind. The key player in this story is a CIA venture capital firm called NQTel. They invest in tech companies whose innovations could benefit the U.S. intelligence agencies, including the CIA and the National Geospatial Intelligence.
Isn't that funny? IQT, on the QT, in the QT.
Oh, I didn't pick that up.
You know, that's the thing, like QT. That's old OSS
Yeah.
talk for on the secret.
It's like, they call it download technologies.
Yeah. On the like, you know, that's how the old timey speak of on the down low in the QT.
All the spooks.
Intelligence agency. Back in the early 2010s, NQTel saw massive potential in Niantic's augmented reality platform. The founder of Niantic, John Hanke, already created Google Earth.
No relation to Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo, by the way. I just want to get that out there. You know.
Howdy ho.
Neighbor.
Combine that expertise with location-based gameplay, and you have a tool capable of mapping the world, not just from satellites, but from inside buildings, parks, and other pedestrian-only areas.
That sounds nuts. That sounds crazy. That sounds like a weird conspiracy theory fever dream, but it's actually a real thing, and it's really, really happening.
The connections are undeniable. Gilman Louis, the head of NQTel at the time, received multiple CIA awards for his work with Niantic. The CIA was so thrilled with the project that they publicly celebrated Louis'.
I don't know about this guy.
That guy kind of looks Chinese.
That's a little bit.
It's a little
He
bit.
went pee in my Coke, I think.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's Japanese. Who knows? I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Is there any such thing as is there any such thing as privacy anymore, Jim?
No, it doesn't seem that way. Like, see, you would think like people would be up in arms and they'd be screaming that this was a violation of the Fourth Amendment and all this stuff, and the government, because you clicked the box saying it was okay, and somewhere in there must have been some language saying they can use this data for something else, you know, and like basically it's that whole, you know, South Park, you know, Apple show, the centipede, human centipede, or whatever it was called, or whatever episode.
Right.
Yeah, so that's basically where we're at now. Because nobody reads that shit.
My son he's involved in a national security space. And he's super paranoid about stuff. And I'm like, aren't you a little paranoid? He's like, no, you don't know. I'm like, okay.
They're coming to get me.
His role in making Pokemon Go a reality. Why? Because the game was collecting a gold mine of data.
Even the most advanced AI models today struggle to visualize and infer missing parts of a scene or to imagine a piece from a new angle. And this is about to change spatial intelligence.
Every time you play Pokemon Go, the app records your precise GPS location, photos taken by your phone's camera inside and outside, the routes you walk, how long it takes, and even your speed. And of course, what you look like, courtesy of your front-facing camera. It doesn't stop there. Niantic collects this data constantly and compiles it into what they call a visual positioning system, or VPS.
At least they're very diverse. You know, you got a woman, you got another woman who's African American or black, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, maybe she's from a different country. And
that's what my department, when I was an IT director, that's exactly what my department looked like. It wasn't at all. It was a bunch of white dudes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. She's kind of cute, actually. But she doesn't
probably-
know what she's doing. She's
No,
just
she's HR.
HR saying, "Hey, you liked this tweet. You shouldn't have liked this tweet.
Why didn't you lock your workstation?
Yeah, you know."
The result? A neural network capable of creating hyper-detailed 3D maps of pedestrian areas right down to the centimeter.
So this will help computers perceive, comprehend, and navigate the physical world in a way that will seem equally advanced. So analogous to the LLMs, stuff like ChatGPT that you're using, geospatial models are built using vast amounts of raw data. Billions of images in the world, all anchored to precise locations on the globe, are distilled into a large model that enables a location-based understanding of space, structures, and physical interaction.
Niantic isn't even hiding it anymore. They even released a blog post boasting about their large geospatial model. They proudly announced that their AI-powered system now operates in over 1 million locations worldwide, powered by millions of user-submitted scans. They've essentially crowdsourced a map of the entire world, built from the perspective of regular people holding their phones. And the cherry on top? This technology isn't just for games. Niantic envisions their geospatial model being used for robotics, content creation, and wait for it, autonomous systems. That's right. Drones, AR glasses, and even military tech could all leverage this massive CIA-backed data trove.
They are bragging about it. Niantic Labs, the company behind Pokemon Go, has released a new blog post on November 12th, just 1 week ago, bragging about how they are collecting millions and millions and millions of photos from everyone playing it in order to create this 3D AI system that sounds like a dystopian nightmare.
Think about this. Pokemon Go doesn't just map public spaces. It maps your private spaces too. Imagine someone playing the game in your house, scanning rooms, furniture, and even the people inside. All that data is fed into Niantic's servers. The CIA now has access to pedestrian-only areas that satellites and cars can't reach, inside homes, offices, and sensitive locations. And it's not just theory anymore. Vault 7, a massive CIA document leak in 2017, revealed that a third of CIA's surveillance tools were named after Pokemon. Coincidence? Probably not.
Back in 2016, when Pokemon Go was really taking off, back in those early naive days of smartphoniness, I wrote an article talking about the connections between Pokemon Go, the NSA, and the CIA.
Oh my God, we got a guest. Hello, Mr. Mark.
Hello. How you guys
What's going on,
doing?
Doing all right.
Doing
Been
great.
listening to you for a little while here. All that good stuff you're talking about.
Just going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Like all those holes. Yep.
So what's
Hey,
the end game for this? Like they're mapping all this data inside your house.
Well, the
Like-
end game, I think, is to send drones in to kill us all.
Yeah,
I
could
mean,
be.
that's the ultimate end game,
So hurry it up.
Yeah, speed it up here,
What's keeping you guys? Jeez. Waiting around a long
Right.
time here.
So what's your take on the pardon, Mark? What do you think?
I can't believe it. I mean, I only heard about it because I saw your DM basically say, hey, let's talk about the Hunter Biden thing. I said, what? Because I was asleep. I don't believe it. I think it's amazing. I really do think there ought to be some kind of J6 thing, good pro
There
quo
better
going
be.
on
If
this
there's
or
not,
something.
there's going to be a lot of pissed off people if they don't get
Oh
pardoned.
yeah.
But I mean,
Oh yeah.
why do you think it goes back to 2014?
Oh man, that whole, is there a Biden crime family and all of that? I said, gets a little bit more suspicious. You got a really old guy who probably doesn't care, and then you got his family. I wonder about that because he wasn't president back then. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and you definitely, if I would say if you see a pardon for his brother come out in, say, the next couple weeks, because he was deeply involved in all the same stuff. And there's other people too, like John Kerry. John Kerry's son was involved in the Rosemont Seneca thing, which started back in 2014.
Is John Kerry the one that married the
Heinz
the
woman.
Heinz?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But, so we'll
I don't-
see,
I don't know if they'd end up doing all of that, though. I mean, the thing he cares about, obviously, is his son. So, he's got that. Why bother with all the other stuff? Because even if stuff comes out, what difference does it make? Biden doesn't care. He's protected his son, protecting himself.
Well, I don't think he wants to go to prison.
Yeah, but
I mean,
nobody would ever charge an ex-president with something that would put him in prison now. Come on, that's far-fetched. That would never happen, Jim. Come on.
Well, I mean, I agree. I don't think it would ever happen, but there's crazier things have happened, I guess.
But I think Biden, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, Mark, is in I don't give a fuck mode. He's going to die soon. He's not running for political office anymore, so fuck it.
Yeah, and why not just blanket out a bunch of them right now? I mean, why wait? What difference? He could just pull out the piece of paper and start putting names down, saying, "See this list of names? All of them up above." Yeah, pardon.
Yeah,
everything.
maybe. I mean, there's rumors that Hunter Biden was writing a book, a tell-all book, basically about everything, and so maybe that was why this pardon had to come because, they were together for the holidays. Maybe he said, "Dad, I'm writing this book, and I'm going to talk about all this stuff, and got a choice to make. Pardon me, or it's all coming out."
Awkward Thanksgiving for sure.
Yeah.
Pass the stuffing, by the way.
Or I mean, how do we even know Joe Biden actually signed, did any of this? Maybe Hunter did it, and they just sent it and said, "Yeah, my dad signed this." Maybe they told him, "Yeah, you pardoned me, you just don't remember."
Well, he certainly didn't write it, right? I mean, with the guy, I want to pardon my son. Draft me a memo, and I'll.
I mean, I'm sure they had to have lawyers. I'm sure lawyers were involved that had to talk. Well, let's see how long do we want to do this for? What's the statute of limitations on things? Well, let's just run it back to, let's say, January 1st, 2014, because that's when all this stuff started. When did you form Rosemont Seneca? Oh, February 2014. Yeah, let's run this back to January of 2014. Because that basically covers any of the money that came from China, any of the money came from Ukraine or the other places. The mayor of Russia that sent him $1 million. Not Russia, mayor of Moscow. What the fuck in Russia?
See, that's the shit I'm interested in. Like, why is he getting all this money sent for what? What is?
Because the big guy's got to get paid.
Yeah, 10% to the big guy.
What do you think about this? This Pokemon Go thing, Mark?
I had seen that. That is even more interesting. I like the fact that they got, imagine all those people, you saw people walking into ditches, walking into traffic, they're looking for their Pokemons and all of that. That's an incredible thing. All those.
What about
cameras,
the name
all
of the
those
company
phones.
that did it? The IQT, in the QT, back the old fashioned, keeping it quiet.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's brilliant. It's brilliant if they did that. And they even got you to go to the polls, right? Pokemon, go to the polls. Yeah.
You're right, Mark. There was they do news bits on it on the local news, and it's people walking around malls just staring at their phone.
People nearly getting themselves killed, or maybe probably somebody did get themselves killed by walking into something, Jeez.
Imagine their tombstone. It just says he found Jigglypuff in the end. R.I.P.
Oh, Destiny found Jigglypuff, in Fuentes' bathroom.
Oh God, and I am so grateful I did not run into that. The actual images.
Oh no,
that
I know there was some fucking guy on Twitter saying I've watched it repeatedly, and I don't think it's like you did what?
Repeatedly, yeah. That's
like it's a Zapruder film.
Yeah.
All I saw was what was posted on Twitter, which was just Destiny looking like he's sucking a cock. I didn't see anything other than that.
Yeah.
But
if you zoom in at second 47 seconds,
and I thought 2 weeks ago when we saw Fuentes squirting that lesbian in the face on his porch that was going to be the biggest shot from Fuentes.
Wait, what?
You didn't see it? The woman come to ring his doorbell and he maced her in the face. We were watching that.
Oh yeah. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Not now it's his destiny was elsewhere.
I don't think there's any normal people on the internet anymore. Sometimes I think, oddly enough, we're the only normal people. When it comes to comics, politics, everybody's fucking unhinged.
Well, I think the more we watch this, we're becoming unhinged as well. So I'm not so sure about us even.
When you stare into the abyss. that kind of thing.
Yeah.
God.
So let's see where else this goes here.
And I pointed out to everybody that Pokemon Go really existed because of a direct investment by the CIA. Yes, the CIA.
According to Niantic, they process over 1 million scans per week. That's millions of new images feeding into their.
And just wait till these guys figure out that the NSA is who developed Bitcoin.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
Theory Thursday shit here you
It
can
is.
get into.
Well, you know. That's why they told everyone, remember, they said, oh, it's untraceable, it's this and that, and they can't track anything, and everybody can use it, and they get every people to use it. They go, oh, no, we could trace everything.
I was
Everywhere
asking
it goes.
Jim. I was asking Jim earlier, Mark. Are we past the security era or privacy era of humanity? Like, there's no privacy anymore, right?
No, there is no privacy. In fact, I work in online computing and so forth, and there's nothing left, people. There really isn't. You've got to just go with it, which is, I made a decision a few years ago to say, to hell with it. I'm going to use Gmail. I'm going to use all this stuff. Who cares? I don't care anymore, because what do I care? You know, I'm getting older. So what?
Sure.
But I think that anybody who's like really young and all of that, yeah, their lives are totally mapped out. You know, everything is known and nothing's going anywhere. And yeah, it's kind of disturbing. But you know what? If it's everybody, okay, fine.
Well, I think the problem is now the narrative is, well, if you're not doing anything wrong.
Oh, well, yeah, but they've always done that. I mean, anytime you want privacy of any type, decades ago, why do you want to hide that? Why do you want to, have something unknown? What are you trying to hide? Oh, nothing. Privacy. No, you can't. Yeah, that's an old way of them trying to get at people that way. So I don't know. It's dumb.
So this is AI.
That's just
AI system every 7 days. They're essentially building a real-time global surveillance network. And here's the kicker. You don't even need to play the game to get caught in the web. If someone near you is playing and you're in their camera's field of view, congratulations, you're now part of the data set.
Yeah, it's just really immersive. Like I said, it gets you out here doing stuff. I just talk to a bunch of people on the path doing it.
Players say it's also forcing them to be more social outside of the game. This group had only been friends for 5 minutes when we ran into them.
So why is this a problem? For starters, this level of surveillance raises serious ethical questions. Who owns this data? How secure is it? And how is it being used? Niantic insists that their system is for advancing technology, but let's not forget who funded them in the first place. Intelligence agencies aren't exactly known for respecting privacy.
There's a secret CIA surveillance program, and it's allegedly been collecting data in bulk, including information about lots of Americans.
The next time you open Pokemon Go, or even see someone else playing it, remember, you're not just catching Pokemon. You're feeding a machine backed by the CIA designed to map and monitor the world. What started as a fun, nostalgic game has morphed into a surveillance tool of unprecedented scale. So ask yourself, is the convenience of augmented reality worth trading away our privacy? Or have we been duped into willingly becoming part of the biggest surveillance experiment in history? If this video made you think twice about your phone apps, smash that like button. Subscribe for more explorations of what you aren't being.
Yeah, I would recommend everybody go and sign up for Eric Hunley's channel, Proven Conspiracies. It's really good. Sometimes he comes off as a little bit of a communist, but
That's a good video. I like it. It's like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes. A good video. But he's a good guy. He's really good on Fridays. They do this Freeform Friday on a channel called America's Untold Stories. They do a lot of good stuff too on like the JFK assassination, him and Robert Gruber. Hunley
I think it's like virtual bread and circuses with security. People will trade in their privacy for convenience and entertainment.
Well, they used to do studies walking up to people and saying, we'll give you this amount of money if you tell us your password, and people, yeah, sure, no problem.
Look at this. Woman who performed Nazi salute at protests is unmasked as owner of 2 kosher cafes inside Jewish hospital. Well, isn't that a little bit of a like Schadenfreude? Mark Rubert, sorry, cynic. I was thinking of Robert Barnes. I get them all confused. Get old, things. I get old and things blur together, and I don't remember so well.
So what is this? Is this another one of the, oh gosh, it's the Nazis? Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's actually not the Nazis.
We can pull it up here and see what it says. Oh, it's the Daily Mail. So a woman who performed Nazi salute at protests unmasked as owner of 2 kosher cafes inside Jewish hospital. Woman who was caught at a pro-Palestine demonstration giving a Nazi salute and making anti-Jewish threats has been unmasked as the owner of 2 kosher cafes inside a Jewish General Hospital in Montreal, Canada. Mai Abdullahadi was shockingly caught on camera. Well, that don't sound like a Jewish name.
No, not exactly.
Crypto.
She was wearing a kafaya, a traditional Palestinian scarf, as well as a medical mask. Abdullah Hadi warned in the video, final solution is coming your way. Final solution. Do you know I shouldn't be reading this. This is going to get clipped. This solution was a plan by the bad people for a deliberate and systematic mass murder of Jews during World War II. It took place from 1941 to 1945 and saw the vast majority of Jewish victims murdered. Well, I mean, didn't they kill a lot more like gypsies and other people than actual Jews? I mean, I thought the numbers were like a lot of Jews, but a lot of other people too, right?
Well,
they always forget about the other people.
There were 1 million Polish Catholics that were also killed. I learned that from my first serious girlfriend years and years ago, and her father came right over from Poland, and he was big on it. I had never even heard of that before, and he gave chapter and verse about camps and all of that other stuff. And
yeah, I mean, like, I think anybody who was like any like the gays,
anybody that wasn't who they wanted, anybody else,
rid of, like gypsies, Romas, other people of non-Aryan descent or whatever, they just kind of got rid of.
It doesn't reduce, what happened to the Jews, but it makes you wonder about everybody else.
Well, I just don't know why they don't talk about the other people. It's like
exactly. Why not just put all of it out and say, see how bad the bad guys were? Not only did they do this group, they did that group, that group, that group, that group. Well, it doesn't lessen the Jews at all to say other people also got killed. We're not saying, the Jews didn't. We're saying other people did get killed.
And I sometimes ponder this thought. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I wonder, like, we did have some people in the United States during that time in camps. I believe they were called Japanese.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of them, hundreds of thousands, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong.
We didn't kill them, though.
No, we didn't. But we also weren't starving here and running out of food and couldn't supply even our, Germany was starving, our military was hurting for food and the people were suffering and it was a problem. I'm saying, I wonder what would have happened to those people in the U.S. if we ran into the same, like if we were losing the war.
Yeah, if you run out of supplies, do you
who's the first to go? I'm not justifying what happened at all. That's not what I'm going. I'm just saying, like, I want, like, if you look at all the people that the Russians killed, a lot more.
Yeah.
Like I think Buchenwald, I think it was called, was one in Russia. And when the Russians took over in like 1947, they just named it like Soviet Camp Number 2 and killed like 1 million people there themselves. So I mean,
didn't Stalin wipe out like millions
and millions? Yeah.
It was, not to mention there was even prior to World War II, like way prior, there was the whole, I think, pogroms or whatever they call them in Ukraine and stuff, where they killed a bunch of people.
It's almost like this type of thing has happened throughout history.
Oh, totally.
I don't know.
I mean, like, it happens.
And people
Holodomor.
Yeah, people don't talk about all of the ethnic cleansings and so forth in various African countries. And,
that happens all. Like the Tutsis.
And that's still going on, people.
The Tutsis and the Hutsis and the Hulus and the Zulus. They used to just whack each other out all the time.
Pol Pot.
Smoke pot. Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder why we don't hear more about them.
Well, you know,
That was facetious. I know why.
So I don't know this story at all, but is that really a Yahtzee salute, or is she literally hailing a cab or something? I
no,
don't know.
she's actually doing a salute, and she's like saying things like, you know, final solution stuff. And you know.
I mean, who in the world would ever say something? I mean, Jesus, that's awful.
She's crazy.
Yeah, she's
That's-
gotta be.
That's
Oh, the cafe's parents. So she was the owner. It was like a chain, so she owned them. So she was no problem with taking the Jews' money. She just didn't like them, I guess. So it says the cafe's parent company, Foodtastic, said Sunday it will retain the cafe staff and continue to pay them until the location at the Jewish General Hospital reopens under new management.
That's a plot twist.
Yeah. So I'm
So
surprised.
she didn't like the Jews, but she would take their money.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, who knows? Maybe she was there just spitting in everybody's coffee.
It could be. Could be.
Maybe deep, a deep thing. So here we
Could
got
you
this.
tell me your last name? I'll write it on your cup when your drink is ready.
Yeah, let's see. What's this? Pole shift. How bad will it be?
Good afternoon,
I
folks.
love this shit. I love pole shift stuff.
While we'll hit two key aspects of the paper, the big part is a revisiting of how bad we expect this disaster cycle to be. So here is the paper, the discussion of magnetic reversals, excursions, and secular variation. If you'll recall from this morning, one of the last things the paper does is claim to look ahead based on recent trends, recognizing the dropping magnetic field strength now, and suggesting that a full magnetic reversal was not on the table. But then they chose not to discuss the possibility of the current shift being an excursion, despite those being a core focus throughout the paper. For those who need a reminder, the full-chron magnetic reversals are the rare events. They happen every few 100,000 years. They take more than 1,000 years to unfold, which is actually why they are less scary than the excursions. When it takes dozens to hundreds of generations to complete that shift, species can adapt, migrate, etc. And the same goes for Earth's energy balance and the climate. The excursions, though, are nearly the same magnitude of change, but can happen in less than a human lifetime. That has been confirmed 4 times in the last decade. And that rapid of a shift is why the peer-reviewed science literature suggests they are so deadly and cause the upticks in species extinctions. Secular variations are much smaller changes, and those happen on centennial to millennial scales and do not usually involve both a magnetic pole shift and a drastic change in magnetic field strength. So again, the paper claimed to give a little forecast at the end, but only mentioned the full reversals and ignored the excursion topic, which again is much scarier. Now, the other thing they did was describe how bad versions of the excursion are likely to happen every 23,000 years. By the way, that is well within the error range for the 12,000 year cycle doubling to 24,000 years, suggesting that every other cycle is worse and the ones in the middle aren't as bad. And this brings us to the overall question. Collectively considering the radiation influx, climate shift, volcanoes, and great tsunamis, how bad should we expect the biosphere hit to be this time? Here is a list of the major and minor excursions that have taken place in the last 50,000 years, the 6,000 and 12,000 year cycle events. Now, while the Mono Lake excursion 36,000 years ago was major, a bad event, and 24,000 years later, Gothenburg was pretty bad as well. That seems to match their every other cycle conclusion of severity. However, outside of that one example, we see that it kind of breaks down. Lachamps was bad. Actually, both were 48,000 and 42,000 years ago. So at the bottom of the chart, the last 3 listed were all pretty bad. When the next ones were actually minor, despite the expectation coming with the 12,000 and 6,000 year cycles. Gothenburg 12,000 years ago was bad, and the Noah or China event 6,000 years ago was not as bad. Now, this might seem a little confusing, but let's think of it this way. Whether you go with that paper's every other cycle hypothesis, or what I have suggested in the past, simply that 2 terrible cycles don't seem to be hitting back to back. In fact, we don't really have much in the way of evidence for that. It suggests that this coming event, while it will still be a catastrophe, will be like Lake Mungo or Helena Polly, and it will not be as bad as Gothenburg, Mono Lake, or Lachamp. Species will still go extinct, and a large percentage of humans won't make it to the next age of Earth. But I now reiterate what I've said before. You can survive this. Don't be discouraged. For you, your family, and anyone else you care for, be what you were meant to be. Realize the potential of your DNA that has survived many of these cycles before. Subscribe for daily updates here, and I'll see you in the morning for the daily show.
So what do you guys think? We're all going to die?
Oh, definitely. In fact, I'm
Ooh.
yeah, set your calendar, people. Put a little reminder up there, you know.
Put it in your Google Calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
Die.
Yeah, this is a great channel. People Suspicious Observers. Ben Davidson is his name. He's like,
I would like to see him come out with a video where he goes, I did some more research. I don't know. There's nothing to worry about, really. I'm shutting the channel down. Solar flares are good. Don't worry about the
problem with that though is
Good.
that it's not, I mean, they're starting to recognize it other places. It was just in Apple News talking about the magnetic excursion.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, dude. Oh, I saw there was a great episode of Patrick Bet David. I don't know if your PBD podcast.
Yeah.
Randall Carlson on talking, and it was like they started getting into Freemasonry for like 45 minutes. I was like, this is intense.
There's a guy who, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Patrick Bet David, it was Valuetainment, right?
Valuetainment.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think he's like, I don't know, man. I mean, from what I could tell, he started off as like an insurance broker in New York, worked it up to where he bought like a multi-state, like huge insurance agency, then somehow became part owner of the Yankees.
What?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And now he's got Valuetainment, and he's in Florida.
See, I thought the Valuetainment, when I discovered it, I thought it was like a back channel, like low key. And then all of a sudden he's everywhere.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
It's a good channel,
Definitely.
I think. Low watermark. I know you're sort of like me a little bit, and some of these conspiracy things sound ridiculous. Are there any conspiracy theories that you're willing to buy into?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so, really, but I don't think of them that way. If there's something that I believe in, then I wouldn't think it was conspiracy theory in the first place. But I listen to some of the stuff, and some of it is really interesting. Some of it seems really far-fetched to me, of course, I guess, I read the Apple article, Jim, when you mentioned it, and moving 55 kilometers or so per year, I guess. But then that article itself said, but, it can also turn around and it can go in another direction. So it may never actually reach Russia. It may actually turn around and go in another direction. So
it could, yeah, who knows? But it's moving, and they know it's weakening, though. They know our field is weakening. I mean, that's accepted science that it's weakening.
Yeah.
I think the line between conspiracy and truth has been getting blurred over the past decade. Because sometimes conspiracies you thought were nuts 10 years ago, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Actually turned out to be true.
No, that is true. And then I love how people will throw stuff out there. Remember when not long ago, they said, by the way, people, aliens are real. Like out of nowhere, the government say, oh yeah, all the alien stuff is totally real. And no one cared. So the government says, okay. And it went nowhere. It's almost like they expected to derail everything with the vax and all this other stuff. Aliens are real. Look over there. Aliens are real. And people say, who cares?
I agree. If that's true, which I don't think it is, but if it's true, that's the biggest news story in the history of human civilization.
Exactly. And they came out with it and it went nowhere. It's almost like we're so used to the crazy shit online that even when they come out with something that 10 years early, people say, oh my, and it would have been the biggest thing in the world. But now just look online. Every day there's something wilder than that. Aliens are real. Who gives a crap?
That's a good point. We're just inundated with all kinds of crazy that crazy doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yep, aliens are real. Anunnaki are real.
But Jim, magnetic reversal, extinction. Now, I get it with electronics and all of that. Magnetism, electrical fields, and all that, big deal. 6,000 years ago, who cares? There's no electricity. Why do animals go extinct? Because magnetic fields move.
Most animals actually navigate, and like I'm using navigate generically, using magnetic fields, like birds and stuff, and fish, and big animals. It's like the magnetic field affects them. It affects their brain. It affects the way they think. But
Right,
I
so
don't know
how-
if that's what caused. I don't know if that's what caused the extinction of all the megafauna 12,000 years ago, roughly, when at the end of the Younger Dryas. But something killed them all, and maybe whatever happened was tied to the magnetic reversal. If the magnetic reversal happens because of the changing magnetic sheet, the galactic magnetic sheet that is changing polarities as it's coming through and causes the sun to micronova, and like maybe it's a whole thing that happens. I don't know. Or maybe nothing happens.
Yeah. I like how they try to figure out what happened to them, because I saw something just today talking about there were more species of elephants in North America than there were in Africa.
Yeah, there was three.
Yeah.
There was 3 different types of elephants. There was giant beavers,
all kinds of giant bears,
giant
a
bears,
lion that
there
was the
a
size of a
plasticine lion,
horse.
plasticine lion. The saber-toothed tigers and all that were here, and
Giant beavers.
yeah, huge beavers, giant beavers. Like
and sloths the size of elephants as well.
What?
Yeah, crazy shit.
Fucking
And they had red hair too, so they were dangerous.
yeah, it was never mind.
Let's see. This is coming from Harvard now. Let's see what Harvard has to say.
Oh,
Son of a bitch.
Steve
In
Harvard.
this video, we will see poor science, the proof and evidence, and disappointment in the American Astronomical Society's response to the poor science. I'm Ben Davidson of Space Weather News on behalf of the entire Observers Collective. A recent paper in the prestigious and widely read Astrophysical Journal Letters by Dr. Manasvi Lingam at Harvard and the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics is outright wrong. The American Astronomical Society knows it, and they will not allow a rebuttal to the work to be published. Here are the basics. The study was motivated by claims that mass extinctions are related to changes in Earth's magnetic field, namely magnetic reversals. This study by Lingam investigates the increased radiation dose to the surface without Earth's magnetic field strength, and also the atmospheric loss, like what we think happened to Mars. The study adequately shows that neither of these two processes alone, or combined, is likely to be severe enough to cause mass extinction. After this analysis, the conclusion is drawn that mass extinctions are not a part of the magnetic reversal process because of their analysis of radiation dose and atmospheric loss. Relatively broad statement about a geophysical and biospheric process in an astrophysical journal, no less. And while the sentence may attempt to seek refuge behind the word unambiguous, other portions, including the abstract, are far more definitive about the message. The American Astronomical Society indeed played the key role in preventing this discussion from appearing in the appropriate forum. They publish a few journals, but all rebuttals to their papers must go to the research notes section, by their rule. And I indeed initially tried to do this the right way. Actually, initially isn't the right word. The first 4 times we tried to do this the right way, doing exactly what was asked of the new submission each time, and each time finding a new reason for the topic to be avoided. Below this video, I do have links to copies of some of these submissions so you can see them for yourself. We will indeed be going over the scientific.
So he's telling us about his attempts to actually talk to the manager. I wrote 4 letters and they didn't take them. Oh, come on, dude. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's a reputable organization, the AAS. That's like legit.
Yeah,
right?
They're almost as reputable as the ARA.
Not quite. Let's not get crazy.
I know.
This video, however. First, my comment was too general. Then, I needed to demonstrate the harm. Then, we didn't sufficiently rebut the original analysis, which we never actually claimed to do. It is in fact how that analysis was applied. Back and forth, with Puddle jumping at their request, instead of progress towards publication. I love the American Astronomical Society journals. I believe that commentary in science journals is of the utmost importance, and with the only journal appropriate for such a rebuttal unwilling to participate,
here we are on social media. So perhaps some fast thinkers out there already know what the issue is. You cannot selectively choose two ways in which the biosphere changes and then seek to make a broader statement about the topic as a whole. On the topic of the timing, whether or not they occur together, one can look at various forms of evidence of the timing in rock, fossils, ice cores, etc. When it comes to figuring out which factors are playing a role and to what degree, one does what Lingham did: pick some factors and investigate. However, what has no merit whatsoever is a blend of the two, cherry-picking two factors among potentially dozens to hundreds in a magnetic reversal, and then making a statement about the broader temporal correlation, saying that the reversals do not cause mass extinctions. We do not claim he did any bad math or improperly analyzed the long-term changes in radiation dose or atmospheric loss, but in omitting other long-term changes and literally every short-term one, this broader conclusion is unwarranted. Here we declare not only that this conclusion is plainly overreaching by any logical measure, we hope you can see that already with simple reasoning skills, but that we also have considerable evidence of precisely the opposite conclusion, that numerous challenges to the biosphere do occur and likely constitute a complex ensemble of difficulties that presents the scariest possible gauntlet for life on Earth. The first points we will make were actually made mostly by Lingham himself in 2017 in a paper with Abraham Loeb, the famous astrophysicist from Harvard, where they came to major conclusions about Earth's risk of a superflare in the next 1,000 years, something 10 to 100 times bigger than the Carrington event of 1859. But there are three elements that they investigated in 2017 that are missing from the Lingham 2019 paper, which we are rebutting here: the ozone loss, resulting UV risk, and the resulting transient temperature change applied to the biosphere in the short term by short-term space weather events. The ozone loss from the Carrington event is shy of the extinction level, obviously, but that is under Earth's currently strong magnetic field and does not begin to consider what happens in a magnetic reversal. Carrington events are thought to recur every 200 years or so, which makes their coincidence with a weaker magnetosphere in reversal a serious possibility. Does it act like a supernova or gamma burst on the ozone with a weaker magnetic field? They saw fit to examine these concepts here, but Lingham ignored them in 2019 under the weaker magnetic state. This is the original paper we submitted, which gives examples of adverse effects to plant life from geomagnetic changes, and also the UV risks that would obviously be amplified due to ozone loss. There are also considerable lines of evidence that the microalgae would suffer under a weakened magnetic state at Earth. These are the foundations of the food chain and are ignored factors in the recent study. Back to Lingham's own words. There were actual temperature changes imparted on the surface, short-lived, but potentially hazardous if taken just to a bit more extreme. We have to take even the normal 11-year cycle flaring seriously on this level with a weaker magnetosphere, and definitely a Carrington-level event, and its effects on microbes, leaves, flowers, insect, lizard, and bird eggs, and
Jim,
on the energy balance in the atmosphere
is he
and
sending this?
Merited.
Is he sending these letters to the AAS? Is that what he's?
Yeah.
God bless him.
And I imagine they get them and go, oh, fuck, another one?
Yeah. Oh, look, he invited us to a potluck. That sounds good. Good, the potluck.
A discussion in 2017, ignored in the recent study. Back again to our rebuttal. Solar forcing of the terrestrial climate is in fact the subject of our textbook, and this is a sampling of the hundreds of citations that could be used to demonstrate the sun's direct effect on clouds, storms, lightning, and again, global temperatures, not to mention major oscillations like El Nino. This is an entire book all to itself, broken out entirely, before you consider the magnetic reversal, and to ignore all of it in the 2019 study is probably the most egregious omission. I do apologize for the bold glitch down there. This happened in the PDF process at journal level. I am showing the actual converted submission file here. I cannot really blame him for not being terribly knowledgeable about the seismic and volcanic risks of such a situation, unless of course one is writing a paper saying that these magnetic reversal situations do not cause mass extinctions, in which case this literature is helpful to know. And again, this is only a tiny selection of the available citation literature due to their word limits, or I would have added much more. Indeed, with cosmic rays being the #1 increasing space energy factor in a magnetic reversal, their effect on magma viscosity at silica-rich sites absolutely cannot be ignored, or the resulting effects on the climate. One cannot ignore the direct biological effects of the photon energy, particle energy, and interplanetary magnetic fields of the sun. Again, only a few of the available citations, which do continue on to the next page, showing the major cardiac effects even on healthy people in terms of blood pressure and heartbeat. The psychological effects are interesting as well, and are confirmed both by human retrospective statistical analysis and in situ studies of mice, rats, rabbits, etc. It's real for all animals. Cognition, motor skills, and focus go down. Emotional instability and anxiety go up. And frankly, there is no way to ignore any adverse influence on life in the relatively competitive and unforgiving natural world. Finally, there is evidence for the correlation between extinctions and magnetic reversals in time. that is based on proper evidence. This brings us back to the initial logical fallacy that you cannot go for the factors, be highly selective, and then make broad general statements about the timing, while not refuting any of the actual evidence used to claim the timing matches up. Here is a list of the rebuttals to Lingam 2019. The premise is flawed. You cannot ignore the bulk of potential biosphere changes and make claims about the temporal correlation. The ozone loss and short-term climate changes shown to be dangerous by Lingam and Loeb in 2017 were not only ignored in 2019, but must be scaled up under a magnetic reversal to scarier levels. That's actually numbers 2 and 3, and would apply to potentially 11-year cycle flaring and definitively to the 200-year level Carrington event. The UV risks to plants were recognized in 2017, ignored in 2019, and there's ample evidence to suggest considerable challenges to both plants and microbial life in a magnetic reversal. The climate changes include clouds, precipitation, lightning, temperatures, storms, and more. None of it is considered in Lingam 2019. Seismic and volcanic hazard may be reasonably hypothesized to increase during a magnetic reversal, but at very worst, one cannot outright deny the possibility without investigation, as did Lingam 2019. Cardiac and mental challenges posed by changing environmental electromagnetism also should not be ignored, and the known correlations should be amplified in a magnetic reversal. The timing data used to claim the relationship exists was not challenged in Lingam 2019, and yet the conclusions utterly refute them. Finally, there is a major forum and venue issue here, as this is mostly a geophysical discussion with astrophysical and biophysical relevance. The paper could have been published in a more appropriate journal, especially with the geophysical implications of the broad conclusion. The editor, by the way, said at one point, if the big event plays out, we're all screwed anyway, so what's the point? His words, not mine. Dr. Lingam, it is true. The majority of this evidence and these factors should probably have been addressed given the title and topic and conclusions of your paper. But at the very least, the principle of blending a selective factor analysis with a broader temporal correlation was an improper treatment of the problem, resulting in an unfounded conclusion about the correlation between magnetic changes on Earth and mass extinction. NASA, NOAA, the European Space Agency, nobody denies that Earth's magnetic field can weaken to 5 to 10% of its current strength. And in my honest opinion, such a drastic scenario may not even be adequately represented by your 2019 analysis, even in just the radiation dose and atmospheric loss. But I am willing to play devil's advocate, give those analyses of the two factors the benefit of the doubt. Yet, unquestionably, there are major issues that remain. So, what do we want? Well, we do consider multiple options to be academically acceptable here. The first one we do not prefer, and that would be that the paper is retracted. A paper could be published restricting your 2019 conclusion to the unlikely nature that those two factors were the cause of the reported correlation with extinctions. That would also be acceptable, as it would resolve the overreaching conclusion problem that is truly at issue here in the first place. The option we drastically prefer is that you use us as your 400,000 person research assistant group, your 400,000 grad students who will do all of the research legwork for the proper paper on this matter. In fact, we've already done it. Indeed, this third option would be to co-author the full appropriate paper with us. Now, I must apologize for any negative backlash that will result from this commentary in this venue. I attempted to do this in the journals, in the academic realm, in the right way, but was not allowed to do so. While I have met frustration with the American Astronomical Society, we stand at a mere academic disagreement, and one that should be dealt with in an academically appropriate manner. We wish to express respect to you, your previous co-author and current co-worker, Dr. Loeb, and to Harvard, the Center for Astrophysics, and to the American Astronomical Society. My email can be found below the video, along with some of the papers I tried to submit. Respectfully requesting response, Ben Davidson, on behalf of the suspicious observers.
Oh, so this was basically a video of him complaining about a letter he sent to them and them not responding?
That's kind of what I got.
That's weird.
There's no point. You can't defeat weaponized autism like this. Like he clearly is educated about what he's talking about. It's just like you said, Jim. He's probably every day they get a letter in the mail. It's like, oh,
you guys seen this interview? The InfoWars interview of these two?
This is a great video.
This is good, right?
Yeah.
You have been the light of the day. You are such a gift.
You brought such light into the room. Thank you very much.
We appreciate
for coming
you.
into this room.
Okay, well, I haven't said anything yet, but nice to meet the both of you. So I'm from InfoWars. I'm not sure if you've heard of us, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. What drugs do they give you to make you like this? Is it just Molly, some psychedelics? What is going on here? Because people are worried.
I'm a person, and I feel, and I have feelings, and I can share them.
Then if you need to cry right now, you cry.
Yeah. And
All right, so you're crying again. I was warned this was going to happen. People on the internet have accused you both of being some kind of reptilian lizard people. Do you care to comment on that?
We're no more lizard people than you are, which is to say, sure, we all have a bit of lizard in us.
Oh, I'm definitely not a lizard person. That was a weird answer. Cynthia, you seem the most unhinged between the two of you. We've established you're both on a lot of drugs right now. If you could be one emotion, what would that be?
ooh, that's a good question. Probably fear for my life. A fear that if we don't do enough of these press junkets, that the producers will lock us in the scary room again.
Whoa, that is dark. All right, to you, Ariana, if you could be one emotion, what would that be?
Please help us. I'm so tired. I don't want to do these anymore.
Hollywood pedophile rings, fact or fiction?
Why am I feeling emotional about that?
Because it's true. And it's a lot.
Okay, interesting. What about adrenochrome? There's a rumor that in Hollywood, in order for many of you to stay young, you harvest the blood of terrified young children about to be sacrificed. Can either of you speak to the anti-aging benefits?
Well, I'm a bit new at all of this, but I can confirm I look much younger and have more energy since I started taking it.
I'm actually 72 years old, so I think you can draw your own conclusions. The stuff works. I just wish there was a way to look younger and more vibrant that didn't involve the ritualistic sacrifice of innocent children.
All right, final question, which is actually a two-parter. Was Tower 7 a controlled demolition? And tied into that, what are your thoughts on the dancing Israeli seen on the rooftop on 9/11?
Didn't Tower 7 fall on its own?
Well, there was a fire on the roof. Does it make sense to either of you that an entire building fell down because there was a fire on the roof? Oh, looks like your handlers are letting me know this interview is over now. Good luck to both of you with your satanic and demonic film. If you like that, make sure to subscribe and follow for more.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Follow and subscribe to Danny's Perfect Content.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I also approve this message. Give your boy Danny a follow. You heard?
Classic Kamala. Always copying me. Not original at all. Sad.
Have you seen the actual press junket interviews with those two women?
It's not much better than that.
No, it's not very different.
You're right. It's not that different. They're insane.
Yeah. What the fuck happened to Ariana Grande?
Well, I saw something that said she's been doing method acting and she's been living in a character for years or something like that.
Okay,
I thought you were going to say she was doing meth acting.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
makes
What does she
sense.
weigh, like 90 pounds now or
Yeah, there's
something? I
nothing-
mean, she
nothing to
is
her.
skinny. And who the fuck drew all over her hands?
That's weird. I don't care how much our boy Cynic loves the movie. I would never go see a movie with.
I mean, wasn't that
after
the
watching-
chick that guy? What was his name? Davidson.
Pete Davidson.
Davidson was fucking. Is that her?
He was fucking everybody. Apparently, the rumor was, from what I,
Yeah,
he's
he's
like
got a
big
17
fucking
inch
hog.
cock or something.
Yeah, so everybody wanted a piece of that. Good for her.
Sure.
Good for him.
Well, good for whoever, I guess. Unsubbed. Dick.
Sick.
But anyway, are you guys interested at all in the history of dragons?
Why the fuck not? My sleeping schedule's fucked because I've had 4 days off. So why not?
Considering, that Joe Rogan believes in dragons, so, maybe there's something to it.
Jamie, pull up the video.
Dragons, powerful, regal, and terrifying. They are one of the most common creatures to appear in myths, legends, and fairy tales.
Well, before we start the video, and not to
Established, just fictional.
not to ruin the gimmick, but nobody here believes in dragons, right?
What? What?
Okay. All right. Hot take. Sorry.
I think, honestly, what probably happened is that someone ran across maybe a big alligator, crocodile, something big, and they just didn't know how to describe it.
Might have been a solar flare happening in the background. And it made
No,
it
no,
look
no. I'm just saying, like,
like it's
I mean, think about it, because like crocodiles kind of live forever or something, or hundreds of years until they're killed.
well, they don't have giant wings and fly though.
I know,
a bit of a stretch.
I don't know. Maybe
I'm killing the fun. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Maybe they were caught in a net and it looked like a wing. I don't know. Just saying, like, people tell stories, like the fish. Put it this way, people talk about a fish they caught. It's like this huge fish and stuff, like a fish story. Maybe it's the same thing. This guy went and like, oh yeah, it was a crocodile came out of the water and ate his friend. And he's like, oh, the monster flew out and I had to kill it. And, fucking thing.
It's breathing fire.
Yeah, and it was breathing fire and shit. And,
all right, that's fair.
Because
I didn't think of it
possible,
that
maybe
way.
like, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Komodo dragons have very poisonous bites.
It's decayed matter and so forth in their mouths.
Yeah, like if they bite you, it'll like fuck you up real bad.
Oh
So
yeah.
maybe it's like someone got bit and it was burning, and he's like, "Oh my god, my leg's burning from the pain." And
Wait a minute, what, Mark? Is that what Komodo they have? How?
Well, I think so. I think so. It's been a long time. And I used to read about dinosaurs as well. And the predator dinosaurs would have so much rotted crap in their teeth. And their teeth were set up in a way where there were grooves and stuff in them, so stuff would get in there. And so if you got bit by one of those, even if you were a giant, whatever, sauropod or whatever they're called, you would die eventually just from the poisoning because of all the crap in their mouth. So they may or may not have poison. I don't know about the Komodo dragon, but I think they fit the same thing. They got so much crap in there that is so rotted. They're immune to it, but you get bit with it, you get any of that, you're dead. So maybe wrong, but
I'll buy it. I learned so much from hanging out with you guys. I appreciate it.
Well, the funny thing is, I started thinking about that. Everybody brushes their teeth, but you don't think about like getting the crap out of your teeth. And when I started reading about dinosaurs and other creatures with all that, I said, you know what? Mouth health is like incredibly important. So I am far more interested in getting the food bits out of my teeth than I'm worried about fluoride or any of that stuff.
A lot of people don't realize, dental hygiene is really important. It affects everything, including your heart.
Yeah. All kinds of
PSA
crap go wrong with you. Yeah, really.
Yeah,
people.
I mean,
get
you
the
should
shit out of your
floss.
teeth.
You should floss at least twice a day to get the stuff out from between your teeth. It's more important to floss than it is to brush.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm talking about. I don't care about the cavity thing. I care more about getting the crap out of there because, before I go to bed, I get that shit out of there. I don't want to be lying in bed for 6 to 8 hours or whatever and have stuff just festering in there. So yeah, clean your teeth, people. Clean your mouth. And make your bed. Jordan Peterson says that.
Clean your room.
Yeah, clean your room.
Wash your
make
teeth.
bed.
Make your bed.
Very interesting. I got sidetracked now.
What's going on?
I got sidetracked. Something. So yeah, dragons aren't real. We don't have to watch that video. It's pretty stupid.
I was all right with watching it. I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to get what angle are we coming from?
These have been interesting times since the election. Man, things are amazing right now.
It is.
Some people would say it's terrible, but other people might say no, not so much.
I can't wait for the next 4 years. It's going to be absolute. It's going to be bananas.
I hope so, but I'm worried. Like I said, I'm really worried about this guy he picked to head the DEA. I wouldn't want this guy anywhere near power. Arresting a pastor for having services during the COVID lockdowns. Yeah, that guy. Fuck that guy. He should be.
How did he wind up getting nominated? Is he like a buddy?
I don't know. I'm worried now that maybe Pam Bondi, who was the Attorney General of Florida, said, "Oh, I know that guy. He's good. Get him to do it." So then that would make me think she's a piece of shit. So I just don't know. Let's see.
They dictated the text to a selected scribe, as in the Era epoch, where one of the two gods who had brought about the nuclear catastrophe attempted to blame his rival. Other times, the god served as his scribe as in the case of the Book of the Secrets of Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge, which the god had hidden in an underground chamber. The Bible claims that before giving the commandments to his chosen people, the Lord God Yahweh wrote them on 2 stone tablets he delivered to Moses on Mount Sinai. He recorded the words the Lord spoke to him while he was on the mount for 40 days and 40 nights. Moses had the new set of tablets written on them when he flung down and smashed the original set.
Wait, so it took 40 days and 40 nights for Moses to write down the stuff on the tablets?
And remember, there were 3 tablets, not 2, and he dropped one. So
yeah,
we
well,
know
that's in that Mel Brooks movie.
exactly.
But I thought they wait a minute. There's a lot of stuff. So didn't it rain? Wait a minute. Didn't it supposedly rain for 40 days and 40 nights with the flood with Noah? And so it took 40 days and 40 nights to write it down. And then didn't they wander the earth for 40 years? What's with the 40s
in there?
Yeah. You know, and speaking of 40s, I suggest everyone go out and get yourself a 40 of malt liquor.
Yes.
After the Golden Calf event. The Book of the Secrets of Thoth would not have been known if it weren't for a story about it preserved on papyrus from the reign of the Egyptian monarch Khufu, Cheops. We would never have known about the divine tablets and their contents. Everything would have been included in the mysterious body of lost writings, whose very existence would have never been discovered if it weren't for the biblical narratives in Exodus and Deuteronomy. At least 2 occasions suggested that the biblical narrator was aware of prior works. The fact that, in some instances, we are aware that some messages exist but are unaware of their contents is no less terrible. The Bible explicitly references the Book of Dasher, also known as the Book of Righteousness, and the Book of the Wars of Yahweh.
Oh, I wanted to go back there. If you see this, where's it at?
Unaware of their contents is no less terrible.
You see this hand holding this bag on here?
Mm-hmm.
This is the same kind of bag that they see. It's on those pillars in Gobekli Tepe. It's on pillars in Peru. Like, what? Wonder what that means. Like, what is the bag representing? Is it knowledge? Is it water? Is it, what is it?
So you're saying it was spread around the world?
Oh, yeah, this bag. This guy bringing the bag. Is it the people that they say, like the story of Atlantis, saying that these people came and they brought knowledge? I mean, I'm just asking questions here. I'm not trying to push anything on anybody. I just, I'm open to anything at this point. I think we just don't know. We don't know what was going on this planet 10,000 years ago, 15,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago. We have no fucking clue. And anyone saying we do that, they were just doing this or just doing that. Well, we keep finding shit that says that's bullshit. They say that there was no way, there was no, society that could do these things because they were just hunter-gatherers, but somehow at least 50,000 years ago, some people got on boats and went to fucking Australia. How did they get there if they didn't have boats? So there had to have been boats. There was other, like Cyprus. Cyprus has been occupied for at least 15,000 years during the Ice Age. They know it was. So during that time, there must have been boats that were big enough to take people and animals and all this shit to Cyprus. But they don't have any. They don't have any information about it. I mean, it's possible.
So the question is, how did they get there?
Yeah.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah. How did they get there? They must have got there by boat. I mean, or unless there was aliens that picked them up and dropped them there. I mean, we want to get really crazy. Crystal spaceships brought them there. That's why I think, Billy Carson, for being as crazy as he is, the stuff, the way he explains it, I mean, if you just were like, well, that kind of makes sense. Like, why are there different people in these different areas? Why do Chinese people look like Chinese people? Why do, people in Aboriginals in Australia look that way? Why do the people in South America look this way? Why do the people in these areas? I mean, is it just that tribes stay together and people that didn't look alike, they stayed away from each other because they fought and killed each other? Or was it because there was these alien God type creature issues that took people around the world and set up camps and had the people there and branded them to look a certain way so they could keep track of them? I mean, that sounds crazy if you actually say it out loud, but I don't know.
It doesn't sound that much crazier than people just building boats and going to Australia 60,000 years or whatever.
Yeah, it's nuts, right? Why did they build that Göbekli Tepe? What the fuck was that built? That was built at the end of the ice, around the same time as the Ice Age, Younger Dryas, during that time. I thought that people like that didn't exist. Does it make any sense that people like you, me, our modern humans with our brain capacity and our ability, basically our mental capacities, that for hundreds of thousands of years we just ran around picking berries and using the same stuff that no one ever advanced? It doesn't make sense.
So if it's impossible that somebody all that time ago built boats to get to Australia, which makes sense, and to me it's impossible that there were ever aliens because of the vastness of what we think is the universe, so that would tell me that those two theories are wrong.
I mean, there's another one. I mean, basically, I think what's the part of the problem is we've developed into a society where you have experts, and these experts have their own theories and stuff, and they'll do anything they can to protect it. And anybody thinking outside the box, people like Randall Carlson, people like Graham Hancock, people like Billy Carson, who is Billy Carson, so let's just leave it at that. They're going to be attacked and ridiculed. I mean,
David Icke,
Robert Schoch, coming out and saying, no, the Sphinx is at least 20,000 years old from the water damage on it. Wait, no.
Streeper, all those old Art Bell guys who were great. I love that. Right.
They took these stones. The Sphinx is carved out of the base of the Sphinx is carved out of bedrock. They carved down into the bedrock and took giant 100-ton stones out and built a temple next to it. Who? How? How the fuck did they do it? Explain it to me.
I'm beginning to think the holographic universe theory is correct. That all this is bullshit.
It's possible.
Maybe.
The Bible explicitly references the Book of Dasher, also known as the Book of Righteousness, and the Book of the Wars of Yahweh. This is the book of the generations of Adam, says the first line of Genesis chapter 5. Toledoth, typically translated as generations, means historic or genealogical record. The second time is in Genesis 6:1, where the phrase, "These are the Toledot of Noah," is used to introduce the story of Noah and the deluge. In addition, the Book of Enoch, one of the so-called apocryphal books that were not included in the canonized Bible, contains passages that scholars believe to be fragments from a much earlier Book of Noah. In fact, partial versions of a book that became known as the Book of Adam and Eve have survived over the millennia in Armenian, Slavonic, Syriac, and Ethiopic languages. The famed Library of Alexandria in Egypt is a frequently cited illustration of the magnitude of lost books. In conflicts from 48 BC to the Arab conquest of AD 642, this beautiful library, where intellectuals met to examine the body of knowledge, was destroyed. After Alexander's demise in 323 BC, General Ptolemy built a library with more than 500,000 volumes of literature engraved on diverse materials: clay, stone, papyrus, and parchment. The first 5 volumes of the Hebrew Bible translated into Greek are all that is left of its richness. In addition, several of the library's resident scholars' papers still contain fragments. Only via this do we know that in 270 BC, the Greeks gave the Egyptian priest Manetho a commission to chronicle Egypt's history and prehistory. Then it was the demigods, and ultimately, around 3100 BC, the Pharaonic dynasty started. He said that the divine reigns lasted for thousands of years after the flood, during which time there were wars and battles between.
I mean, what if all these like Greek gods and stuff, the gods of Greek, Zeus, and what if those were actually the Anunnaki passed down, time?
What about current day religions?
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, let's get they have that temple or whatever it's called in I think Saudi Arabia where they all march around in a circle like real weird, and this thing, it's got a stone inside, a black stone. It's a fucking meteorite.
What, the big black square, the cube?
No, they got a stone inside of it, black stone. It's a fucking meteorite that someone found, and they're praying to it. I don't know. It's weird. Mecca, yeah, but I mean, I believe there's a God. I'm just not sure if we know the story. You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense. Like everybody's perception of what God is maybe wrong.
Right. I don't know. I mean,
because you're right. There was a group of people who believed in Odin. There was a group of people who believed in Zeus.
Right.
There's the person that we can't talk about. There's Jesus. There's
Mahmoud.
Can't be all of them.
Yeah, or they could be. Maybe it's all the same.
All right.
Like the Indian stuff is like from India, not the American music. It's very fascinating when you look into it. The stories about these great wars and these giant bombs that went off and these things fighting and the destruction, and there's like actual scientific evidence that is either from a nuclear explosion that happened thousands of years ago or some other explanation they come up with. But it's like, well, this kind of thing is formed from this or this, and I don't know.
I always thought that's why religions were formed, was to explain the inexplicable.
Well, it's either to explain the inexplicable or for control, I think.
Or, well,
because how do you get people to act a certain way unless they believe there's a reason they have to act that way? I mean, think about it. If there's nothing after you die, then what reason does anybody have to not just do whatever the fuck they want?
Well, I think that's go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
Well, people go back and forth on that all the time, though. It said, oh, without, hellfire and damnation, nobody would ever act, nicely. I don't know about that, though. I think that people inherently, I think more people act nice just because they want to, because they are nice or whatever, that they will help people, and I don't know that everybody's thinking about heaven and hell all the time that way. I mean, I think that's very primitive to think that people will only act nicely if you scare them into it because, they'll be in hell forever. I think that's kind of naive.
Okay, you're right. It is primitive, but how would people have ever got past the primitive point without religion?
If there's an intrinsic set of ethics and morals in everybody, then the question is, where did they come from? Like what ethics and morals? But like, I agree with you, Mark. Like, I think decent people will just be nice without threat of eternal damnation. But you look at what is good? Like, where does that come from? How do we know what's right, what's wrong?
Well, it's very interesting to think about, caveman days. Okay. So go way, way back before any organized religion and all of that. Neanderthals. All right. What made them work together and all that? Well, survival. There's something in family, something in community. So, they acted nice. They cooperated, for basic reasons, because as a group, you can do much better than you can on your own. So I think that religion just kind of came along, as the state trying to control people, Maybe when the population boomed so much because there were too many people, so they said, well, we need something bigger than just community. If there are millions of people, well, you don't need millions of people to work together. A few hundred people working together is enough. I don't know. I think that religion would teach you that you have to have some fear of something to control people. But I think that's just misguided. I think that people probably would have gotten there on their own if these groups didn't organize this stuff. I don't know. I think we went down a bad road at some point, and religion, the Dark Ages and all that started basically by religious people trying to keep people ignorant. And I don't know. I think that if we hadn't gone there, I think we would have a much different world. Maybe not to get all Star Trekian or something like that, but which by the way is very socialistic, by the way. Anyways,
yeah, Star Trek is like communist
very
society.
very social, yeah. But I think people there would have been such an enlightenment and so forth that I can't even imagine what we lost in those years. How much all this old stuff maybe some of the knowledge would have come through if we didn't go through like a Dark Ages period. Did they suppress stuff? Did they, hide stuff? Did they just lose it?
Think about just in the last 20 years, 30 years, the stuff that was destroyed in Afghanistan and Iran and stuff by the different people, like the old, there was, I don't know. I mean, I read stuff about it. I don't know what's true or not, but it's like really old, like carvings and things on that got this, like the Taliban blew up when they took over after,
Well, it was the same thing with the Germans in World War II, just grabbing shit from the countries they invaded, or go way back, like the Romans burning the fucking Library of Alexandria twice.
Did the Romans burn it?
Well, that's what history.
Yeah, I don't know.
So.
I thought the Roman. I thought
supposedly, I could be wrong.
Supposedly, they were trying to burn the fleet, and the fires from the ships burning went into the town. That's I don't think they deliberately set out to say, "Oh, there's a library with knowledge and burn it." It was probably us just being stupid, I mean, not caring about.
Yeah, we can blame the Italians, sure. Dicks.
Yeah.
Made us all stupid.
That's fair. That's fair. No, that's fair. That's
he was trying to make a pizza. Fucking oven got too hot. Got to be careful the wooden doors on the oven. So,
but then you get into okay, if that was never burned down, would we have learned anything as a society from it anyway? I mean, what? I don't know.
I mean,
well, that's actually a good point. There could be all this knowledge sitting around and nobody would even look for it. Let me just think.
When was it that they found the Dead Sea Scrolls? That was not that long ago. That someone just happened upon them. So it's possible that this information is somewhere. It just hasn't been discovered. Like they preserved things in those sealed clay pots because they were worried. They were worried about stuff going bad, so they knew that stuff would rot. They knew things. There's a lot of explaining. They don't explain how people knew these things. Like it's just like the knowledge was there, and they just go, "Oh, someone figured it out." Who? How?
Yeah, going with that, there could be basically backup copies of all this stuff hidden all over the place.
Yeah.
Now, what would be really interesting is when somebody finds something like that and they look at it and say, "Damn, we can't let anybody know about this." Imagine there is like a big backup of the Alexandria Library somewhere, and somebody's found it. They go inside and they figured out some of the stuff. Said, "Oh no, we can't let the world know about this because it would change everything." That's even better than aliens. I mean, Area 51 and all of that. I mean, maybe they found all this shit. And they're not telling anybody.
Then you have to get into defining they.
I know they is always that's always the big problem. How who is they? And once you say they, people say you're crazy because they. But it could be the they thems. There you go.
Well, I don't know, Mark.
Who the theys are. They're all non-binary.
Do you remember in school, Mark, when they would have us read I can't remember. I don't know what they call it in your school or you, Jim, but they would have us read these little reading cards.
Flashcards?
No, like you're in 5th grade and they give you like a little essay to read about this, that, and the other thing. And it was always like, oh, in the year 2000, there's going to be flying cars and bases on the moon. And what upsets me is I think we could have done that. Like, I think if humans put their mind to anything, I really do believe it can be achieved. But then there's a certain, not group, but there's some people who are just dragging it all down. It's like what you see on X. Like, we'd have a fucking Mars colony by now.
You know why?
Well,
civilization. Long before the pyramids soared above Egypt and ages before Stonehenge was built, the ancient civilization of Sumer thrived. Sure, we have sites like Göbekli Tepe and Göbekli Tarla, which predate the Sumerians, but those are small gathering places compared to the vast civilization of Sumer, the world's first empire. The Sumerians invented writing. They discovered the wheel. The sailboat was first created by the Sumerians. They revolutionized agriculture by inventing the first plow, to be used on farms fed by a sophisticated irrigation system. Again, the world's first. Though the Greeks get credit for inventing city-states, that too was a Sumerian concept. Sumer was organized into city-states, each governed independently with its own ruler. These rulers reported to the king according to the Code of Ur-Nammu, the world's first legal system. Sumerians understood complicated mathematics.
Is that like that Dormammu guy that was coming out of the void to get Doctor Strange? No? No one? No one?
And astronomy. Their number systems used to tell time and measure the angles of a circle are still used today. Sumer was founded about 7,000 years ago, and you probably know everything I've said so far. This is common knowledge. What's also common knowledge is that Homo sapiens, or modern man, appeared about 300,000 years ago. Look at how much our technology has evolved since the Sumerians. It took only 7,000.
That's a question. It says we appeared. How did we appear? We just popped out of the ground?
Maybe the fish will tell us.
Maybe, maybe we were, I don't know. I mean, there are things too, like there's that whole thing about, like, it looks like modern scientists today, looking at our DNA and the strands and that, whatever it's called, like the tellurides or whatever, that are been clipped, and there's one chromosome where that makes us basically only live to be like 126 years, like caps the lifespan. Because there's other things that live a lot longer, like crocodiles, turtles, birds. I mean, there are things that live less, but I mean, where it looks like we max out. And then you look at the Bible and it says how these people lived for hundreds of years, 400 years.
Methuselah, all that.
Methuselah and all these things, and then all of a sudden it just changed.
Well, wasn't the story behind that is that God got tired of our shit and just wiped everything out and started over again?
Basically, yeah.
Which is what in the Greek pantheon, same story with them. Zeus had it, and he's like, fuck it, I'm just going to wipe them all out. It's very similar stories.
Yeah.
Throughout all the
stories are
religions.
similar. Yeah, all over the world, the stories are the same. No matter where you go, they got the same stories about floods and fires and earthquakes, and so maybe they're all interrelated. Maybe it's all interconnected. Maybe there's, why are these symbols? Like, there's symbols that are all over the world. One of them is this crazy symbol that this struggling Austrian painter liked, is all over the world. But you can't even talk about it or use it, because then it's all tied to him, even though it was everywhere and all over. It was in Native America, it was in South America, it was Asia, Africa. It's probably in Antarctica and the bases they have there.
1,000 years to go from discovering writing to landing a man on the moon.
Yeah.
Okay, to landing something on the moon.
Better.
So what took so long? Why the sudden explosion of technology? What was modern man doing for the 225,000 years or so before ancient Sumer? Why did technology not progress? Ancient Sumerian texts tell us why. Technology couldn't progress because humans were busy working the mines.
Working on a coal mine, going down, 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 working on a coal mine. Woo, I got to slip down.
Oh, they weren't mining for coal, they were mining for gold. Gold is a miraculous metal. It's an excellent conductor, highly useful in electronics, and crucial to space travel. Radioactive gold isotopes can target and destroy cancer cells. Gold can also be used for data processing and transmission. Before the 20th century, humans had no practical use for gold. It's nice to look at, but they couldn't use it for anything. Have you ever wondered why a metal useless to ancient humans suddenly and only very recently became the most valuable metal in the world? Gold has other uses. Gold nanoparticles can clean the environment. Gold facilitates chemical reactions that purify water and air by leaching away toxic compounds. That's where the sky gods of Sumer come in, the Anunnaki.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
Why are you saying it like that?
Yeah, Anunnaki. It's the new jingle, like we are farmers. Bam, 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 yeah, I'm loving it. Yeah, Anunnaki, Anunnaki, Anunnaki. You think it will stick?
No, that's just a ripoff of Hallelujah. Gold was more than the most valuable metal in the world. It was the most valuable metal in the solar system. The Anunnaki weren't gods. They were aliens from another planet. They needed gold to save their world from an environmental disaster, but gold was rare on their planet. They found a solution. About 450,000 years ago, the Anunnaki arrived on Earth not to help humans, but to use them. Gold is abundant on Earth. The Anunnaki knew this, and they wanted every ounce of it. So they bred us as a slave race to work the mines. The planet of the Anunnaki, hiding in the far reaches of our solar system, does exist, not just according to ancient tablets, but according to NASA. The whole world of the Anunnaki has been called the 12th planet by Zecharia Sitchin. NASA calls it Planet 9. Others call it Planet X. The Sumerians and the Anunnaki called their planet Nibiru, and the fates of Nibiru and Earth were about to be joined together forever.
Wow.
Anu stood on his balcony and laughed to himself.
Now, here's a question. Why is he bald here, but when he gets to Earth, he's got a big head of hair?
Don't know. Got a weave?
Yeah, like this big weave of like fake rope on his head. He's culturally appropriating some people.
Right. It's like Beyonce.
Those people. You know.
His laugh wasn't about anything funny. It was a sarcastic laugh. Anu wasn't his given name. Anu was his title, given to all leaders of his people, the Anunnaki.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
Please, no catchy jingles when I'm doing dramatic science fiction.
Sorry. Go ahead, Philip K. Dick.
50,000 years ago, when Anu was young and ambitious, he fought former King Alalu for the throne and won. The council elected him to see Nibiru through the crisis. But during his time as leader, conditions on the planet were only getting worse. Industry on Nibiru was highly controlled. Factories polluted the air. There was no way to avoid it, but they had the technology to control it. Skyscraper-sized air recyclers dotted the landscape around every urban area. However, a series of volcanic eruptions caught the Anunnaki by surprise. Ancient volcanoes spewed ash and toxic gas into the air, overwhelming the recyclers with mountain-sized pyroclastic flows. Within weeks, the recyclers began to fail. Within months, the atmosphere began breaking down. Nibiru's ozone layer was thin in most places and completely gone in others. The sky above Nibiru was a sickly yellow, and the atmosphere was thick and oppressive. Twin moons once shined brightly. Now they were barely visible through the haze. Stars that had once filled the night sky could no longer be seen. Anunnaki lived for 200,000 years. This long lifespan, once considered a gift, was now a curse. The older Anunnaki remembered a night sky filled with stars, but the young ones had never seen a star. The last, brightest star disappeared behind the gloom years ago. In the cities of Nibiru, the towering spires of ancient buildings loomed over empty streets. The grand avenues, once lined with breathtaking sculptures and shimmering fountains, now seemed to taunt the Anunnaki, a painful reminder of an age of prosperity now long in the past. The gardens that once bloomed with exotic plants and flowers were now withered and brown. Formerly,
here's a question. The length of a day, okay, is dependent on how fast the Earth spins. Okay?
Yeah.
So if the Earth spun faster or slower, it would cause a day to be longer or shorter.
Right.
You know, and actually, it also has to do with the position of the sun, because the length of the day, you know, not so much the whole length of the 24-hour day, but the length of the daytime changes depending on the position of the sun. But just to say the whole length of the day for a cycle, for the sun to rise and fall, you know what I mean? Like for that time period, whatever, is one rotation of the Earth. So would we live longer if the Earth spun slower? or would it just seem like it was longer? Like, does that affect? Because everything, like because we live in cycles. Like we sleep, we're up, and then we sleep a certain amount of circadian rhythm for the amount you sleep. And fuck. You see where I'm
no, I
going with
got
this,
you.
or-
No, I do, but I think it's like a meta question.
Yeah, like
I
it's a
think
meta. That's what I'm
all-
saying. It's like a meta because he said the Anunnaki lived 200,000 years, but is it Earth years or Anunnaki years? Are they the same?
Yeah,
Because it takes it takes their planets. It says their planet turns much slower and takes such a much long time to go around the sun. Like our year is one rotation of the Earth around the sun. So if their planet takes 30,000 or whatever 6,000 years to rotate around the sun, how many years do they really live? So you're talking Anunnaki years, or are we talking our years?
I would
Doesn't
think
matter.
if the day was 28 hours long, that would have an effect on every living thing on the planet somehow, and it would kind of get in sync.
And instead of it
with,
taking for one rotation around the sun, basically is 365 days roughly, or exactly, I don't know, roughly, I guess. What if it took 1,000 days? Would that mean we would live more time but the same number of years?
I would think the rotation around the sun would have a less of an effect on living things than the Earth's rotation.
Probably,
because the Earth's rotation it's about the sun. Like the sun is why we're here.
Well,
kind of.
everything, like you look at everything that grows,
Energy.
the sun and energy and different stuff. So, yeah,
I think it matters less about the revolution and more about the rotation.
yeah, because I think they're going to get into it. They're going to say how that the Earth, they say that the Earth spins really fast compared to their planet. So I guess that's what I was getting at. Is I don't know. My brain sometimes goes in weird directions where I'm start thinking, like, wait a minute, this makes sense.
Vibrant landscapes were barren and decayed, a casualty of the failing ecosystem. Anu and the Anunnaki people knew that their planet was dying and that they were running out of time. Anu had the greatest minds in the world working on this problem, but the outlook was grim. Then Anu's son Enlil burst into the room. He said, "Father, I know how we can save the planet." In the halls of learning, the greatest minds of Nibiru worked tirelessly to find a solution. They pored over ancient texts and conducted countless experiments, searching for a way to halt the decay of their world. And then, in a moment of desperation and brilliance, Anunnaki scientists discovered the answer: gold. The precious metal, rare on Nibiru, held a key to their salvation. When suspended in the atmosphere, microscopic gold reflects and absorbs the harmful radiation of the sun and space. It was the one chance to stabilize their atmosphere.
Now, here's another thing too: is this story about the gold. Is this story something that someone just came up with, or is this something that was like in ancient Sumerian texts?
Well, my understanding of astrophysics, whatever the fuck you would call it, is every element above iron comes from supernovas, right? Which would include gold.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't make sense for gold randomly to be attracted to one area or one planet as opposed to any other ones.
Well, I think the thing with gold is no matter what, it's always gold. Like even if it gets mixed with other metals, you could always get the gold back out of it and separate it. Like same thing with silver. Like I think actually you use silver to get pure gold, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's the other way around. Yeah, no, I think it's used some silver. But besides that, what I'm saying is, like the story about the gold, that this thing about gold purifying the atmosphere, is that just something that like Zechariah Sitchin came up with in the last 100 years, or was that in actual text? The reason I'm asking is because if that was for some weird coincidence reason in ancient Sumerian texts that they needed gold for this reason, how the fuck did they know gold would actually do that? Because it will.
All right.
Gold is used to purify water. It's used to purify the atmosphere and stuff, to clean air purifiers, and gold, platinum, precious metals. Platinum is inside of catalytic converters along with some gold to to clean the exhaust from a catalytic converter.
Could they have done it like trial and error? Just somebody figured it out. You figured it out at one point that, oh, what the fuck is?
Well, no, I'm saying like we scientists now know that works, but that's what I'm saying. Like, how did somebody 5,000, 6,000 years ago when they wrote this down know that gold had this other purpose besides it just looks nice?
I think people underestimate what humanity knew back then, regardless of whether it's from aliens or just people figured it out.
Well, and that goes to what I said about lost knowledge, you know? So I think we, you know, if you want to get away from aliens altogether and the building of the pyramids and all that, what if people just knew more than we know? You know, not aliens and not all that, but people were actually smarter than we are now. You know, they didn't go through losing all the knowledge.
I mean,
you know,
some of the stuff that I've seen with the pictures of like where it looks like they actually scooped stone out, where you can see the stone, it's like something just scooped the stone out. It's like, how did they do that?
Yeah.
You know, how did they do that? How the fuck did they carve granite vases and these cups so perfectly thin that they're like, we would have trouble doing it with computer aided shit these days. You know,
I think there's a bit of arrogance with people now when they think about the old days, so to speak. Like, I think it's not right to assume that we know more than they did. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's like recency bias with even when you talk about people in the 40s and judge them based on your current morality and ethics. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. The human mind is an amazing thing, and it's more powerful than any computer. Think about that. All the stuff they did in the 30s and 40s with airplanes and rockets and stuff, and they didn't have computers. They used like slide rules and pens and paper to write the shit down. And
yeah, I don't think the human brain has evolved that much in the past.
No, that's what
5,000 years. I mean,
the
it's
brain
not.
No, more than that. It's the brain is the brain. I mean,
Yeah.
it's there. I mean, it's just a matter of taking stuff in and learning. And I mean, anyone who's had children can see how fast a kid sees things and picks things up and figures shit out. So how, yeah, we was smart and shit. Sweet tooth says.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I like the studies that say if you could find a Neanderthal and brought them into modern civilization, other than looking slightly different than us, their brain capacity was pretty close to ours. They were not these primitive.
Well, there's the thing is, I've seen some studies that say that actually Neanderthals had a larger brain capacity than we did.
Well, they certainly had very large skulls, so maybe. And their brain was very well protected with that incredibly hard skull.
They were clearly stronger. They had better muscles. How did they go extinct? Obviously, we wiped them out. Is the only explanation. Bred them out, wiped them out. We were, when I was in school, we were taught that it was like Neanderthals developed into modern humans. Like there was like this Cro-Magnon and these different things. But now I think they're finding that no, all these different things live together at the same time and just basically got wiped out by us.
It's literally IRA. It's adopt or die.
Yeah.
That's why the Scandinavians did what they did, because they had to deal with cold weather. Like, you grow up with your environment.
Well,
and you have to adapt to it.
Even that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like this whole thing, like, oh, everybody came out of Africa and then went to different places, and these people lived in caves and stuff, and that's why they have lighter skin because of cold weather. But that would take millions of years to develop those, to evolve that way. It would take millions of years, not 1,000 or however many, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
it's odd. I mean, I don't know. I mean, a time machine would be great if we could get a time machine and go back and say, hey, what's going on? How did you do this?
And then they would point and laugh and say, we had time machines so long ago. You're an idiot. Go away.
Yeah. Right. I've been to your time, asshole. That's, yeah.
Yeah, things are not getting better, guys.
It was a long shot and would take years, but it was their only hope. The Anunnaki mobilized all their resources and devised a plan. They sent expeditions to the far reaches of the solar system, searching for planets rich in gold. They would mine the gold, bring it back to their planet, and release it into the atmosphere in a desperate attempt to save their world. For years, probes went out, and probes found nothing. Probes traveled the inner solar system and found nothing but useless volcanic rock and toxic gas. But today, there was a glimmer of hope. One of the probes reported not just the presence of gold, but of many more life-saving resources. All the elders were present at the council meeting. Enki, Inanna, Ninhursag, and Utu. But it was Anu's son Enlil who spoke first.
Data from one of our probes has come in. There is a planet very close to the yellow star, rich in gold. It also has liquid water in abundance. Its atmosphere is thin, thinner than ours, but it has a strong magnetic field that shields it from the radiation killing our planet. It's the third planet from the star.
Anu knew of this planet. They called it Kai, but would later become known as Earth. Earth revolved around the sun very quickly. Nibiru was also in orbit around the star, but it took 3,600 Earth years to complete one revolution. Anu thought Earth sounded perfect. The journey would be dangerous, but times were desperate. Soon Nibiru would be making a close approach to Earth. The timing was...
I mean, I guess that's what, see how he said it took 3,600 years for it to go around the sun, to rotate around the star? So does that mean when they said they lived 200,000 years, is that 200,000 years on their planet or 200,000 years in Earth years? Because
I don't know. It would kind of explain why they can make the journey, right?
Right. That would
if you
explain
live
it.
200,000 years, then...
Well, 200,000 Anunnaki years would be 3,600 times 200,000. So that would be like, you know, that would be like, fuck, that would be a lot. Let's see, so 3,600 times 2. That'd be 720 million Earth years.
Then you have to take into account the speed that whatever their spacecraft was going at, because time dilation is actually proven. That's why, you know, GPSs work.
Yeah. So see if they only live 200,000 Earth years, you know, like if their Earth years would be only 55 years in Nibiru.
All right. So for us, when we say, okay, to get to Alpha Centauri, it would take whatever it is. I'm just spitballing 60,000 years or whatever, whatever. It'd be a generational trip.
Yeah.
You'd have to have a family to get there. But for these people, they can knock it out, you know,
right.
We want to go. All right.
It was perfect. He urged them to depart immediately, but Enlil had more to say.
But Earth is teeming with life, including intelligent creatures, though still early in their development. These creatures are bipedal like us, but smaller than us, perhaps half our height.
The creatures Enlil spoke of were under 6 feet tall. Anunnaki were between 12 and 15 feet tall. This is because Nibiru's gravity wasn't as strong as Earth's. This was just math. More gravity means smaller life forms. Low gravity allows plants and animals to grow very tall. Aside from their small size, the Earth creatures were similar in appearance to the Anunnaki in other ways. The Anunnaki had larger eyes and larger skulls than the Earthlings, but the Earth beings had 2 arms, 2 legs, eyes, nose, mouth, just like the Anunnaki. Anu sensed concern in Enlil's voice.
Do these Earth creatures pose a threat to us and our project?
They are primitive but violent. Some eat animal flesh, if you can imagine. They have no interest in gold, but they may perceive us as a threat. They have no technology beyond wood and stone. Still, in numbers, they could be dangerous.
That's what the Ajiji are for.
The Ajiji were a race of slaves who served the Anunnaki in all things, from operating the factories to maintaining order. They were an intelligent and obedient workforce, and they could surely handle primitive creatures half their size. The council convened, the decision was made, and 300 Anunnaki and 600 Ajiji were loaded onto great ships. It was time to make the journey sunward. It was time to make the journey to Earth. After a brief stop on Mars, the Anunnaki fleet arrived in Earth's orbit. The crew was stunned. The planet was a vibrant blue and green with swirling white clouds. Vast glimmering oceans seemed to go on forever. The planet was full of life in the sky, on land, and the sea below.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki marveled at Earth's beauty, but also felt sadness. Their home planet Nibiru was dying, and its people were suffering. But that sadness renewed their resolve. They were here for a purpose, mine all the gold needed to heal their atmosphere.
Anunnaki.
A few ships remained in orbit, while others scouted the planet for a suitable landing site. Eventually, they settled on the lush green plains between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. Later, this area would become known as Mesopotamia, the Greek word for between two rivers. The ships landed, and the Ajiji were put to work. The Ajiji were a race of aliens that the Anunnaki conquered long ago. After the Ajiji were defeated, they were enslaved. They've served the Anunnaki ever since. The Ajiji look similar to the Anunnaki, who look similar to modern humans.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
I'm getting there. Ajiji were between 12 and 15 feet tall and extremely strong. Where humans have somewhat round skulls, the Anunnaki and the Ajiji to some degree have very large and often elongated skulls. These elongated heads have been depicted many times in ancient carvings and frescoes. The Ajiji were given only 7 days to build the great city of Eridu, to be ruled by Anu's son, Enki. The Anunnaki were cruel and brutal.
That's kind of odd too. That whole they were given 7 days, and wasn't there just a story about someone doing something in 7 days?
It sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar, right? Just saying.
To the Ajiji.
The gods' load was great, the toil grievous, the trouble excessive. The great Anunnaki of the Seven were making the Ajiji undertake the toil.
The city was completed on time. Then the Ajiji dug mines and began mining gold. They mined gold day after day, year after year, for 150,000 years. The Ajiji extracted gold by the ton, and ships began making round trips between Earth and Nibiru. Enki, ruling in his father Anu's name, was thrilled. He demanded more output. The slave masters used weapons like particle beams to force the Ajiji to work harder and faster. Enki didn't want to abuse the workforce this way, but felt he had no choice. The atmosphere on Nibiru was all but stripped away. He wasn't sure the gold would get back home in time. Then, against his better judgment, Enki demanded even more output from the mines. The slave masters were told to use any means necessary to get this done, including torture.
Okay, here's another question too, because I'm doing some math in my head as I'm thinking about this. So they say it takes 3,600 years for Nibiru to make a rotation around the sun. It's big elliptical rotation. So if they were mining gold for 150,000 years, that would mean that the planet came past us on Earth 50 times during that time. Or maybe not past us, but into the inner solar system. So close enough to us that they could have made a trip. Closer trip, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe that's when they made their trips, that they were sending gold there, loading it up and sending it there every 1,500 years or whatever, when it got close enough that they could zip it there and zip back.
That's a really popular science fiction trope, is that if aliens came to our planet, it would be to steal resources because their planet needed something.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, not like we ain't planning on going and stealing resources from comets and asteroids and stuff.
Asteroids, yeah. But, oh, believe me, the minute there's an asteroid out there that has unlimited wealth, we'll fucking be there.
Oh, they
Somebody
found
will
one
figure
that's got made out of platinum or something.
I heard that too. Yeah.
But they think it's worth like 36 trillion or quadrillion. Like, and it's like, okay, go get it. But then it won't be worth shit because we'll have too much of it.
Yeah.
Soon, whispers of dissent circulated among the Ajiji. Then the whispers became shouts. No longer would the Ajiji allow themselves to be tortured, and no longer would they work the mines. Atrahasis, a famous leader of the Ajiji, made the decision to rebel.
For too long have we languished under the yoke of the Anunnaki. We were born of the stars, yet condemned to the dark. It is time we seek the light. Now proclaim war. Let us combine hostilities and battle.
The rebellion was swift. The Ajiji were intelligent and strong. They turned their tools into weapons, broke their chains, and fought the Anunnaki for their freedom. The city of Eridu became a battlefield, and gold mines collapsed from the uprising. The Ajiji fought bravely, but they failed, and were put back in chains. Enki's brother Enlil had been overseeing the mining operations. He was furious. He wanted the Ajiji killed for treason. But Enki felt differently. The Anunnaki and the Ajiji had thousands of years of shared history.
Shall we meet defiance with tyranny, or can we forge a new destiny together?
The Ajiji could not return to the mines, and Enki knew this. They would continue to rebel. But someone had to work the mines and do all the labor a large city requires. So Enki had an idea. In the forests were ape-like hominids. They had large brains, walked on 2 legs, and could use simple tools. They weren't intelligent enough to do the work the Anunnaki needed, but maybe they could become intelligent with just a little genetic engineering. There were groups of hominids living in the forest around the Anunnaki cities. These were our ancestors. They were either Homo heidelbergensis or Homo erectus. Stop it. The Anunnaki took one of the hominid males and attempted to cross his genetics with the Anunnaki.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
Enki wanted to create a creature that would be intelligent like the Ajiji, but not too intelligent. They would be strong, but much smaller than the Ajiji. They would be engineered to be submissive and much easier to control. The first experiments were done in a lab, and the results were horrific. Instead of creating a perfect being, the genetic experiments created monsters. Gorgons, Cyclops, Banshees, and two-headed giants. These monsters still live on in ancient stories. The Anunnaki changed their approach. They genetically spliced their DNA with that of a hominid female. Then, rather than grow the embryo in a lab, they implanted it in the female. It worked. Less than a year later, a child was born, a boy. He looked more like the Anunnaki than the ape-like creatures roaming the forest. They named the child Adamu.
Adamu, like Adam from Adam and Eve?
Yep. Adamu means first man. In Hebrew, the word also means from the ground or earth. In Genesis, God made Adam in his own image from the dust on the ground. In ancient Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian texts, the creation of man is described the same way. Man is created in the image of the god or gods by mixing the blood of a god with the clay of the earth. Ancient Egyptians had a story of man being created by mixing a tear of a god with the clay of the earth. Blood, or even a tear, would contain DNA. And clay in ancient writings doesn't mean actual clay, it refers to all life on earth. Every culture and religion has some variation of this story.
Not a coincidence.
Probably not. And there is that gap in history where hominids go from very simple primates to a very intelligent, advanced race. We're far more intelligent than any of the species before us. You'd think there'd be a slow but steady evolution of intelligence, but we don't see it. It's as if humans suddenly appeared. Dr. Ellis Silver wrote a book about this jump in evolution in his book, Humans Are Not From Earth. His theory says that humans were brought here by aliens. Now, whether brought here or created here, the theory says humans were genetically engineered using alien DNA. Dr. Silver claims that humans are not well suited to Earth's environment, while every other animal is. Why did we lose our fur? Human skin is very sensitive to sunlight and UV radiation. If we spend too much time in the sun, it leads to serious diseases, especially skin cancer. No other animals get sunburned. Mammals have fur or thick skin. Fish scales, even birds' feathers, all offer protection from the sun.
That's odd. It's odd when you think about it. That we don't seem to be very well suited to this planet, considering,
Well, that's another scientific theory, is that our planet was populated, I can't remember the fucking term it is, but from other planets. Not by aliens, but just, I can't remember the fucking term.
Well, seeded by asteroids and comets and stuff,
Yeah.
brought forms of life, and it came from other things. But then, wouldn't we have developed to be natural on this planet? I don't know. I mean, why were dinosaurs so big? Why was there all these megafaunas, these giant creatures? Why were there giants? Why?
You can even look at deep sea creatures. Like, have you ever watched those shows with deep sea? They're fucking.
Yeah, they look like aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, what the fuck? How did this happen?
Yeah, how did what's up with a pig? What? That don't look right.
Even shit like
Sure,
squid.
pigs, elephants, and even reptiles can get burned, but they protect themselves by rolling around in mud or changing their skin. Now we have sunblock, but what did humans do to protect their skin 100,000 years ago? Also, humans are more susceptible to illness, disease, and birth disorders than other animals. I have 2 cats. I've had cats for years. I can't remember them ever getting sick. Buddy eventually got sick, but then he died. For 14 years, he never had so much as a cold. Now, I know cats, dogs, and animals do get sick, but not at the rate humans do. Dr. Silver mentions that humans tend to crave food that's bad for us. Salt, sugar, fat, carbs. We're surrounded by vegetables, nuts, and fruit, but most people would rather have a cheeseburger, fries, and a milkshake. I know I would. Back pain is another reason Dr. Silver thinks humans are not from Earth. He claims we're not designed for Earth's gravity. It's too heavy. He believes we evolved on a planet with lower gravity.
Like Nibiru.
Right. The Anunnaki were very human-like, but they were about twice our height, 12 to 15 feet tall. This would indicate they evolved on a planet with lower gravity than Earth. He presents a very compelling case backed up by science. I linked to his book below. It's believed that Homo sapiens first emerged about 300,000 years ago. This is exactly the time of the Ajiji rebellion. So back to the first man, Adamu. The Anunnaki also created a female, Hiva, so they could...
When I get that feeling, I want sexual healing, sexual Healing. It's good for me. Continue.
The Anunnaki needed humans to procreate on their own, and they did, often. The Anunnaki guided this new race for a few hundred years. The population grew to thousands. The Anunnaki taught the new humans all the skills they needed to maintain the city, build homes, plant and harvest crops. But most importantly, the Anunnaki gave humans the skills to mine gold.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki were so pleased with their creation that they allowed humans to visit their sacred garden, Eden.
So, Adamo and Heva in the Garden of Eden, eh?
According to ancient Sumerian writing, yes.
Sounds familiar.
Yep, there is a lot of the Anunnaki story in every major religion in the world. But now we run into a problem. Humans didn't look like apes at all. They looked pretty much like Anunnaki, just smaller. And human women were beautiful.
Uh-oh, that always means trouble.
One of these women caught the eye of Enki, the Anunnaki ruler of the city Eridu.
Yeah, and there it is. Hey, Enki, her eyes are up here.
But relationships between Anunnaki, Ajiji, and humans were strictly forbidden.
Don't sleep with the help.
Oh, come on, that's rude.
I'm serious. You get in trouble when you party with your employees. Just ask Arnold and Ben Affleck.
So Enki broke the law and had a relationship with the human woman. From this relationship, a child was born, a boy named Adapa. Until now, humans were very simple, docile beings, intelligent enough to do the work the Anunnaki needed, but not intelligent enough to complain about it. The birth of Adapa changed everything. He was part human, part Anunnaki. He was extremely intelligent. He married a woman named Atiti.
Atiti?
Atiti.
What'd I say?
From the family of Adapa began a new line of highly intelligent humans, and they started asking questions. They inherited the Anunnaki's desire for gold and for power. But there was a bigger problem. Another trait emerged in this new line of intelligent humans, a trait that would shape the future of our entire species. That new trait was violence. In just a few years, the first generation submissive humans were gone. Some were murdered, but most just died out. The new humans had no interest in mating with them, but they still were interested in mating.
Get up, get up, get up, get up. Let's make love tonight.
Against the orders of the Anunnaki, these new, intelligent, violent humans procreated a lot.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, because you do it right.
Soon the city of Eridu was overrun. It could no longer sustain the human population. People were killing each other for food. The violence was out of control. Enlil was especially annoyed by the constant disturbance of humans. He decided to lessen the population by sending a series of plagues. First drought, then pestilence, and then famine. After each of these plagues, the humans appealed to the god who made them, Enki. He helped ease their suffering and return the earth to its natural state. By now, the Anunnaki had enough gold to heal their planet, and the humans had become a nuisance. The Anunnaki cast them out of Eden and out of Eridu, and from there, the human race spread around the world. But not all humans left. Some stayed and had relationships with several Anunnaki. The children born of these relationships were extremely powerful demigods. Legendary figures like Gilgamesh, Samson, Hercules, and Perseus were the offspring of Anunnaki human unions. But some humans had relationships with the Ajiji. These unions did not produce heroes. They produced monsters. These offspring were a race of giants called the Nephilim. They were cruel and brutal. They tormented and tortured humans, and in many cases, they ate them.
Nephilim episode link below.
Meanwhile, mankind flourished. Human settlements became cities, and cities became empires. Humans conquered all four corners of the earth. It was a prosperous, if not decadent time. But the human race didn't know their world was about to change, drastically. It first appeared in the night sky like any other star, but as the weeks passed, the object grew brighter and larger. Humans were confused and growing concerned. They had no idea what this object was, but the Anunnaki did. It was their home. Nibiru takes 3,600 years to orbit the sun, but its orbit is highly elliptical, so Nibiru travels way beyond Pluto, nearly to the Kuiper Belt, then swings all the way back through the inner solar system. During this time, it comes very close to the Earth. So the Anunnaki started packing. They had enough gold to heal their atmosphere. There's no reason to stay on Earth anymore. Besides, when Nibiru got close to the Earth, they did not want to be on the surface.
Yeah, this sounds ominous.
Oh yeah, it's going to be bad.
How bad?
Well, imagine every disaster movie you've ever seen rolled into one cataclysmic event.
Okay, that's bad.
It's actually way worse.
Yeah, but what about the humans?
Oh, after Nibiru passes by the Earth, there won't be any humans left.
Oh, no.
The farmer was startled awake. The sun was just rising over the mountains in the east. The animals always got restless at sunrise, eagerly awaiting their breakfast. But the animals were more than restless. They were going crazy. His wife groaned and rolled over as he launched himself out of bed. When he got to his barn, the farmer was shocked. His horses were literally screaming to get out of their stalls. One broke its neck trying to break free. His sheep were running in unison like a flock of birds, making a large circle within the pen. Occasionally, one would break off and throw itself against the stone corral. A few injured sheep limped around the perimeter. At least 2 were dead. It was madness. The farmer didn't know what caused the sudden alarm, but he was sure it had something to do with the object in the sky. His village first noticed it months ago when a new light appeared in the night sky. It looked like a star, as the sky gods called it. But the sky gods were gone now. After the new star appeared, they boarded great chariots that took them to the heavens. His people were on their own now. The object no longer looked like a star. It was almost the size of the moon. And like the moon, the farmer could see features on the great disk. Clouds were visible. He could see mountains and oceans. But unlike the moon, the object was visible during the day, constant and oppressive. He knew it was getting larger, or was it getting closer? It was difficult to tell. The farmer jumped when a flock of birds suddenly and loudly took flight. He scanned the forest and horizon beyond, and it seemed like every bird in the world had taken to the air. But there were no songs being sung. The birds were screeching. Then he felt it, a vibration. At first he thought it was his body trembling, but then realized the ground beneath his feet was trembling. The farmer felt the sound before he heard it, a hum so deep it was barely there. But the sound caused a wave of sickness to wash over him. He dropped to his knees to vomit when the world started tearing itself apart. He had experienced earthquakes before, some very powerful and frightening. Nothing compared to this. The ground shook and rolled like a boat at sea. Over his shoulder, he saw the barn crumble. He wondered how many of his horses were killed. He hoped his favorite horse survived. He wanted to run over and save what animals he could, but the tremor would not allow him to stand. Then his house collapsed. The farmer vomited again, knowing his wife and 3 children were still sleeping there. He hoped they slept through their death. They didn't. He heard his wife screaming from the rubble. He heard the wail of an infant. Then he heard himself screaming. But those sounds were suddenly overwhelmed by a great rumble as the ground lurched forward. The stone corral tumbled. Animals were knocked off their feet. Deafening thunder came next, but louder than any thunder he'd ever heard. The farmer covered his ears, but it was no help. What he couldn't hear, he could feel. He looked to the west. There was the grassy hill with a large olive tree. As far as he knew, the tree had been there forever. The graves of his parents and their parents were in the shade of that tree. He thought his grave might be there soon. Then from over that ridge, he saw what seemed to be mountains of fire. Flaming stones as big as houses were launched into the sky, through the clouds, and into the heavens. Hundreds of them, thousands maybe. Dark smoke billowed from something in that direction. And before he knew it, the blue sky had turned black. The morning sun had disappeared. But at least he didn't have to look at the great disk anymore. He finally got to his feet and staggered toward his house. All he could hear was the growl of the earth. But he knew his wife was still alive. If he could just get to her, maybe he could... Then a hot coal landed beside him, the kind he'd seen in ovens at the market. It was bright red and aflame. Then another coal landed nearby, this one a bit larger. They hissed as they burned in the tall grass. He then realized the rocks of fire that were launched into the heavens were coming home. Soon stones made of fire were crashing all around him, and they were getting bigger. The barn disappeared in a hail of fire. On the ground, he saw the shadows. The stones were definitely getting larger, and they were bigger than houses, much bigger. The farmer stopped when one of the large shadows found him. He knew what was next. He said a prayer as the faint shadow in the grass grew larger and darker. He heard an approaching scream as the shadow spilled across his entire farm. Then everything went black. The fisherman was working frantically. The great disk in the sky was shaking the earth, and buildings were crumbling as if made of sand.
I didn't realize it was so late already, Julio.
All right.
I kept you up way past your bedtime.
It's fine.
He lashed ropes around a wooden pike to hold his boat in place. The waves were growing bigger, and his boat was thrashing violently. He hoped his knot would hold. Occasionally, a brick made of fire would drop from the sky and land in the water with an angry hiss. The fisherman was more confused than frightened. The morning was clear and peaceful, and the fish were biting. He was going to make a fortune at the market, but the storm had cut his trip short. Now a blanket of darkness covered the earth, and the wind was howling. Soon the wind's howl became a roar, and rain thrashed so violently that the drops left painful welts in his skin. The earth had been shaking for hours, or was it just minutes? He couldn't tell. When the small houses in the village fell, countless lives were lost, but there were some survivors. They were making their way to the caves nearby. The tremors made it slow going, but the fisherman was sure they'd make it. A gust of wind felt like a shove that knocked.
I mean, how did he get the story of the guy who got crushed by the giant rock?
I was thinking that same thing.
How did he get this fisherman's story? How did he get any of these stories?
Gee,
This must
maybe
be
he
what they
made it
call
up.
artistic license.
Yeah.
Knocked the fisherman off his feet. But this shove continued and continued. The wind was so strong, the man was pinned to the ground, face painfully pushing into the sand. Any houses that survived the quake would not survive this gale. He was being pelted with sand and debris, and boats that weren't tied down sailed through the air, exploding into splinters when they landed. He once again hoped that knot would hold. He managed to get to his feet as soil and dust whirled around him. He couldn't see more than 2 paces in any direction. Unsure of where to go, he followed the sound of a child crying. But that child sounded so far, far away. Then, as if the sky gods had commanded it, the wind and rain stopped. Debris fell to the ground as if dropped by the gods' hands. The earth stopped trembling, though he could still feel a rumble somewhere down deep. It could be the sound of hell itself. He saw a few stragglers wearing heavy packs on their way to the caves. Behind him, he heard a familiar sound, the sound of a river. But there were no rivers near the village. He turned around and saw that the sea had all but disappeared. Water was rushing away at a ferocious speed. But to where? Soon the ocean was a field of mud that stretched to the horizon. His boat dangled from the wooden pike. The knot held. Thousands of fish wriggled and flopped in the wet sand where the ocean used to be. He thought this would be the greatest feast the birds would ever see. Then he realized there were no birds, not a single one. With the water gone, the only sound was that of fish flipping over and over again, slowly drowning in the air. The fisherman's eyes continued to the horizon. He saw a great white cloud stretch from one end of the world to the other. He stood silently in awe. Then he realized it wasn't a cloud, it was a mountain, and it was growing. But how could it be a mountain? It was a mountain of water, a wave, the biggest wave he'd ever seen, the biggest wave anyone had ever seen. As it approached, its crest pierced the clouds, taller than any mountain, higher than any bird could fly, bigger than anything the fisherman had ever seen. His father taught him how to steady his boat when a big wave hits, but his father never mentioned a wave that touched the heavens. Soon, what little light seeped through the gloom was snuffed out by the shadow of the wall of water. The wave rushed ahead at great speed. The man thought that not even the finest, fastest horse could outrun it. Within seconds, the wall of water was all he could see. It was coming. The man sighed and settled his breath. He'd been born by the sea, and he would die by the sea. This would be a good death. He closed his eyes, opened his arms wide, and smiled. In orbit, the Anunnaki watched the continents of the Earth sink beneath the ocean. Tiny islands, once the peaks of great mountains, appeared here and there, but there were too few for anyone to survive, for anything to survive. They knew the Great Flood was coming. Nibiru passes by the Earth every 3,600 years, but the distance varies. Sometimes Nibiru stays far outside the moon's orbit, and the effects on Earth are small. But sometimes, like this visit, Nibiru soared between the Earth and the moon at 40,000 miles per hour. The Anunnaki knew the Earth would be devastated. In the months prior, there was a lot of debate among the elder Anunnaki.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
At first, they decided to let humanity perish. Enlil said that humans served their purpose, and now were nothing but a nuisance. A great flood was just what the Earth needed, a fresh start. But Enki had grown to love humans. Remember, he married a human woman. Enki offered Enlil and the other Anunnaki a compromise. The flood would come as planned, but one man and his family would be spared. Utnapishtim, a wise and good man. He and his wife and family would build a large boat.
An ark.
Yes, and on
This
that
all
boat,
sounds
there
very
the
familiar.
seeds of all living creatures.
Funny.
When the flood came, all life
It
on
does,
Earth.
right? It's like, you know, I mean,
It's
let's say,
creation,
like, yeah, the epic
destruction,
of Gilgamesh. Yeah, the epic of
and
Gilgamesh
redemption.
is basically the same as the story of Noah, if I'm not mistaken. It's also, there's a story of another in India. There's a story of some guy who gets saved by this boat or something, and
It's actually very similar to Zeus and Prometheus in Greek mythology, where
it's like all these
Zeus
things.
wants to wipe him out, and Prometheus is like, no, don't do that. And there's a boat, and it's Deucalion and his wife. It's Noah, Deucalion. It's like a similar story. All this, whether it's science fiction or ancient history.
So I'm saying it's weird though, right? I mean, it's like, why are these things all interconnected? Like the stories.
I think people have always, I think because people always want to know, how do we get here and what's the end? And is the end escapable? I think.
I think it's all fan fiction.
Could be.
No, but
Pishtim, his family, and the contents of his boat survived. Every day, Pishtim released birds to find land. One day, a raven did not return. He sailed in that direction.
That's what's
After a
built
few
into
days, the
people.
boat came to rest on an island that, as the waters receded, became a mountaintop. And now life, including humanity, would start again.
That's the story of Noah's Ark.
It is. But this version is from the Epic of Gilgamesh, written at least 3,000 years earlier. And the story is probably much older than that. Every culture and religion on Earth has a flood myth, which are all very similar to the Sumerian flood myth. Some cultures tell the identical story just with different names. So mankind is reborn. But this time,
Jim,
the
your
Anunnaki
internet
added
is
some
potato-y,
safeguards.
by the way.
They shortened
Is
the
it
human
really?
Oh yeah, it's terrible. The sound comes through fine.
That
But
is
yeah.
fucked up. Let me see. That's weird.
Yeah, and you're frozen.
I'm frozen?
Yeah.
Am I frozen, Mark?
No, you're fine. We have it's just Jim is like frozen.
That's weird. I'm
Do
connected
you
to
see him
both.
frozen?
No, Jim stopped moving.
Okay. It's not a bad look,
I can
by
s-
the way, Jim. So at least you didn't, end with like a rip of kind of ripopotamus kind of thing.
Oh.
Ripopotamus. Hold up. That's a great name for a new comic from Eric.
No, I actually do like the fan fiction thing. Imagine there's one true story, and then everybody writes their own version of it to get it into their language, to get it into terms your people would understand. Make it make it interesting for people. So you write your own variation.
That's why the story of Atlantis fascinates me, because Atlantis supposedly, and it's in the Egyptians that these people came and gave them this knowledge, and it's all over. These people showed up off boats with knowledge from the civilization, with these stories. And so maybe that's how the story spread all over the world with different names. They called different things, like I think in it's like the Mayans or one of those in South America, they had the story of what's his name, Kukulkan or something like that, right?
Google Khan?
Yeah, Kukulkan.
I thought he was
Shaka Khan.
Oh, wow.
Shaka Khan.
Shaka Khan. Rufus the kid.
So let's see, is this better?
Lifespan. They made us more susceptible to illness. They made childbirth dangerous for both mother and child. They would not let the human population get out of control.
Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum would be proud.
They would.
You're gonna live in a pod and eat bugs,
I am not eating bugs.
And worms are pretty good.
I like sushi.
Your jibe cuts me, sir. It cuts me to the quick.
Soon, new settlements and villages emerged, but all of humanity's previous knowledge was lost to the sea. They were back to the Stone Age. Enki and even Enlil were impressed by the resilience of man and decided to visit the settlements. The Anunnaki descended from the heavens and rose from the seas to give people the gift of civilization. Humans are taught reading and writing, mathematics, astronomy, and even engineering. They're taught how to build great cities. And some believe the Anunnaki helped them build huge structures like pyramids and obelisks found in Egypt and South America. And those pyramids and obelisks were built for a specific purpose, by the way. Tesla might have figured it out, but that's another story.
Tesla pyramid link below.
The last time Nibiru passed by Earth was about 700 years ago. That time happens to coincide with the emergence of the Sumerian civilization, the first civilization on Earth. Or was it? Nibiru passes by Earth every 3,600 years. Sometimes Nibiru comes so close to the Earth that the planet is wiped clean. About 13,000 years ago, the end of the Younger Dryas, was the time of the Great Flood. This coincides with the time when Nibiru would be passing by. Some believe a meteor impact caused the flood. Others believe it was a major solar event. But what if it was Nibiru that caused the ice sheets to melt and flood the Earth? What if that's the exact story that we've heard today? The earliest Great Flood myth comes from ancient Sumer, about 7,000 years ago. However, tablets and tablets of Sumerian writing still exist, writing that fills books upon books. The Sumerians wrote down everything. They said the Great Flood story, which was told in the Epic of Gilgamesh, happened many years earlier. The dates work out. And if the Sumerians were right, there was a civilization on Earth before the flood, as many researchers like Graham Hancock claim. Now, that previous civilization didn't have advanced technology, but they certainly witnessed it. Carvings and text from ancient Sumer, India, China, Japan, Egypt, Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, they all tell the same story. Gods who rode chariots in the sky, gods who created mankind, gods who destroyed the earth with a flood, and gods who helped us rebuild it. Nibiru is due to return around the year 2900. Now, maybe it will be a gentle transit, and humanity will continue to evolve and innovate. Maybe by then we'll have learned a way to communicate with the ancient sky gods.
Yeah, Anunnaki.
Or maybe Nibiru's next visit will be a violent one, bringing with it another cataclysm that wipes the earth clean. So does that mean all of humanity is destroyed and we have to start again? I don't think so. Technology is going to keep moving forward. By the time the year 2900 arrives, I'm sure we'll be building outposts on the moon, Mars, Europa, Enceladus. We'll be mining asteroids and stopping at Europa to refuel and refill our water tanks. Humanity will be a spacefaring species. And like we've conquered every corner of the Earth, I believe with a little luck and a lot of cooperation, we can conquer every corner of our solar system. Nibiru may destroy the Earth in the year 2900, but that's okay, because by then, we'll be the sky gods.
Wow, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a good video. I think it ties into what humanity has always wondered. Like, literally, where do we come from? And what's the end? And people have tried to explain it through religions or nihilism, but nobody knows.
Well, this stream went a lot longer than I anticipated, Julio. I thought we were going to be on for maybe an hour, hour and a half. We went over 3 hours.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was a lot of fun. I want to thank everybody that stopped by. It was wonderful to see you all here on this emergency stream that just happened to be like, you know, for no reason, we just decided to come on and talk about pardons. So stick around for
pop-up,
guys. We're gonna
pop-up stream.
Pop-up stream. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming by. We'll see ya.